All right, all right. Now we're going. My name is William Burnett, and you're watching WTTV. I'm here with James Marlon Magas,
Hello.
also known as Magas, or
Formerly known as.
formerly. Oh, this is news
It's
to me.
done.
And then, or just Jim. What's up?
For friends,
Um,
yeah.
Uh, we're just gonna sit here and interrupt each other the whole time because we were just talking about it.
Yeah. Don't interrupt.
I know, but we're gonna have to get used to this. So I said I was gonna do an introduction. Some people, I always give kind of the way I was introduced to you, or the way other people might know you. My first experience, I think, was that you had a record on Airsats Audio, and you were kind of touring around with Adult, and that was my first time that I heard of you. And then I met you at a record store. You had a record and soap store with your then wife, called Weekend Records and Soap, and I went in there and met you. And before that stuff, in the '90s, you were a part of some kind of like a noise kind of scene with like a Lake of Dracula and Couch, which would seem to be like a popular with some kids these days that like noise music. And nowadays, you run a label called Midwich, and this time I know that you're originally from the UP, the Upper
Yeah.
Peninsula of Michigan, but
Yeah.
you've been in Chicago now for a long time. So
yeah, since 95.
so that's like a longer than a lot of people have been alive.
True.
But-
a lot of you listeners were probably born after 1995.
Did I miss anything, or was I wrong about anything?
So far, you've done your homework, buddy.
Yeah. So I mean, what's going on, man?
Not much. What's going on with you?
Nothing, man. I took a little break from doing this stuff because everybody else was doing a podcast or a stream or whatever. So I don't know. I got overwhelmed, and plus I had a kid, and there's like COVID thing, and I don't know. You like let people in your house. It's weird.
Yeah, you gotta.
I don't know. It just didn't work out.
Yeah, everything kind of shut down, and I guess your show is no different.
Yes, I guess so. No, I don't know. That's just the way it worked out, and but I'm glad to have you as my first. But I don't know. This is like a new season or something.
Season 2
Yeah.
premiere.
Yeah. So
Oh, I'm honored. Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
I don't know what you've had such a long career, in music in general, and I just don't know where to start. Like you ran a record store. You've done you were probably toured quite a bit. You have a record label. So which one was the biggest mistake?
Oh man, the biggest mistake. Well,
Or I you know.
well, I love mistakes. I love failure. I love, to me, like a mistake is not really a mistake. There's no such thing as a mistake or a failure, or there is such a thing as a mistake or failure. But I love failure because you could go from failure to failure to failure to failure until you're dead, and that is a success. But are we talking monetarily?
I don't know, man. That's what
Because if it's monetarily, they've all been, challenging.
Pardon me.
But we, I love mistakes. I love failures. I love pratfalls and injuries.
So did you
psychically and otherwise, I guess.
So I mean, I guess that was a pretty broad question. It's kind of hard to pick a path.
Yeah, to pick a favorite mistake,
No.
to pick a failure that outshines the others.
Since you have so many.
Yes, I've had a lot of mistakes.
So I mean,
But mistakes are beautiful.
so we got
I'm here
little-
through a series of mistakes.
little Jimmy was born in the UP which town?
I was well, no, actually, I was
No.
born in Kalamazoo, Michigan, in the Lower Peninsula.
Oh, sorry.
But when I was 2 years old, little Jimmy moved to the Upper Peninsula
Yeah.
and lived there until age 18,
Mm-hmm.
and then I bounced.
And so as a 18-year-old kid in the UP, you had like a normal family life or brothers and sisters and
I did not have a traditional family life. I have one brother. Well, I mean, it was traditional because, like, nowadays, divorce and step parents and all that kind of thing are normal.
yeah.
So I'm a child of a broken home a few times over. Um, I had a series of different arrangements throughout my childhood. I mean, I had a great non-traditional childhood. I mean, like I said, like what's normal these days?
So sometimes you would live with your father or sometimes with your mother or
No,
some grandparents.
when I well, sort of. I grew up with my mom. My parents divorced when I was about between second and third grade.
Okay.
My dad hung around the area for a while, and then he moved to Texas. He
Okay.
moved to Fort Worth, Texas. So I would occasionally see him in the summertime sometimes. So, and then my mom remarried when I was like in third or fourth grade, and she remarried a few times. Like she's been with my stepdad. They've been married since the early 90s.
Okay.
Stepdad number, or I mean, not stepdad number, but husband. And I don't want to make this sound too cavalier in case my mom's watching, but actually, by the time we get to the end of this, there's just really like, I don't think my mom's going to be too happy with probably a lot of things we're going to talk about. No, but the fourth husband was a winner,
Oh.
and so. It worked out.
And
For them.
so what grade were you in by then?
I was gone. I was
you were
gone. By the time she met
90s,
her, by
okay.
the time she met her fourth husband, I was long gone. I was living in Ann Arbor. So I met him later. I came to Ann Arbor, and she had remarried, and I met him.
So it was probably easier for her to form a lasting relationship without some
Brats running
yeah,
around and like
smelly
brothers.
kids.
Yeah, brothers fighting and stuff like that. My brother and I. We got along. We were very close, but we used to fight all the time when we were kids. We'd punch each other and like pin each other down and hang spit in each other's
That's not nice.
faces, and like sometimes we'd bite each other. Like we would like bite each other's backs. Like.
And he's older or younger?
He's younger.
He's younger.
He's younger, but he's now. When I was younger, I'd be like, "Quit copying me, quit following me," and that kind of thing. And eventually, he did quit copying me and quit following me, and he had a very long and successful career instead of a series of musical failures.
Good for him.
But he's a superintendent. He's a school superintendent. Wow. So he did quit copying me. Lucky for him. So
was there like a musical role in like or how did music play a part in your life as a kid? Was it like a big deal?
When I used to listen to there was always radio on when I was a kid. You'd hear like the things we do for love and like Muskrat Love and Captain and Tennille, Seals and Croft and all that kind of stuff. It was always on the radio and James Taylor, and so I didn't really pay attention to it. Bye, Don McLean and shit like that. And, but music did not really take hold for me until about fifth grade when I started listening to Casey Kasem's Top 40. We all us kids in sixth grade would listen to Casey Kasem's Top 40, and we would all transcribe. We'd listen to Casey Kasem's Top 40, and I think one girl started it, but then we all started doing it. Why we all made duplicate lists when we couldn't just pass around one? I guess there weren't photocopiers, but we all copied down the number of like number 40, and you'd write down number 40, and then go to 39, and write down number 39, and it'd be like Dire Straits, Sultans of Swing, and all this kind of stuff. And then I was struck by one, and that was Blondie's Heart of Glass. I used to say Heart of Glass, and the classmates would be like, "It's Heart of Glass, not Heart of Glass." So I liked Blondie, and I became obsessed with Blondie. And I bought Blondie's Parallel Lines. That was the first record that I ever bought. And I just listened to it backwards, forwards, on 16, on 45, on 78. I would spin it, I would backspin it, and that was the first record I ever bought. And then the second record I bought was a Blondie record, and the third one, and I just was really into Blondie. And then eventually I started getting into some other music like Cheap Trick and the Cars and Ted Nugent and stuff like that.
Yeah, good. I mean, Ted Nugent's kind of a weird one.
Yeah, he sucks.
But I guess he was like a real character back then.
Yeah, at the time, like, there was no way of knowing,
Yeah.
I mean, to my young age, what he would turn out
Yeah,
to be.
I mean, who knows?
In fact, I thought he was going to be cool because he did a song, the Amboy Dukes did a song called The Great White Buffalo that sort of chastised the white man for being dicks and like killing all the buffalo that the Indians used for food and stuff like that. So I thought he was on the right team.
Who knows, man? You can't win them all, you know.
Right. But and then when I was in high school, I had a friend, Jason, and he came from Arizona with tapes and records of like the birthday party and the Dead Kennedys and stuff like that. And we're like, whoa, what's this shit? You know, it was like he had like a handful of like Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, and we just had like a handful of punk rock things that were sort of imported from Arizona.
So this is like very early 80s. Or
This would have been like, early to mid 80s, like probably like 80, 83, 84, something like that.
I just try to get a time frame here.
Yeah, 83, 84. And then I started getting interested in punk stuff. And also, we saw a big one was seeing Plasmatics on the Midnight Special. Seeing Plasmatics on TV. Oh, and Saturday Night Live. Seeing like B-52s and Gary Newman and Captain Beefheart and Kate Bush and just all this weird shit on Saturday Night Live. It was like, what the hell is, like, who is this Captain Beefheart on Saturday Night Live? You know, it was just like, you would just see like Saturday Night Live because I grew up in the middle of nowhere. The only way I'd find out about like weird stuff that was on SNL. It wasn't called SNL then.
No.
And I would go to the supermarket with my mom, and while she would grocery shop, I would look at music magazines looking for articles about Blondie. And there were a lot then. So they were in almost every magazine. But I would also see other things. And I remember I ordered some Blondie pins, buttons. I had Blondie buttons all over my jacket. And in that catalog that I ordered the Blondie pins from, I was seeing like, what's Throbbing Gristle? What's, like, I would see the Plasmatics. I remembered them, but I'm like, what's Pigmeat Markham? What's, like, what the hell is all this stuff? Like, and so I started to get an inkling that there was other stuff out there that I was just not exposed to. I knew there was stuff out there in the world that I was just not seeing.
But when you would see these names, it would be like their logo or like in the font.
No, it was just a
articles.
visual description, like Wendy O. Williams, like clothespin on nipple, pin 2 inches. It would just be like like
a list,
like a
catalog.
list with a written description of the pins. So I couldn't see what anything looked like.
What do you remember the magazines and stuff like that you were reading? Was it?
Yeah, it was like Hit Parader, Circus, Cream,
or like Flip Side or something. That's
no,
later.
No, that didn't make it up there.
Yeah, okay.
That didn't make it up there. So like I would later look at like Maximum Rock and Roll and Flip Side, but those were not imported to Marquette, Michigan. So at the time anyway.
So you're just like at the regular grocery store.
Regular ass grocery store, looking at like regular music magazines, and I would see stuff in Cream like who is this David Johansen? Like who is Stiv Bators?
Yeah.
You know, and here's a picture of Grace Slick with her boob out. Ooh,
Yeah,
Mom,
yeah.
can I have this one? You know, like.
Well, Cream is really a cool magazine, though.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was. So that was like one way that it was through magazines in the supermarket that I came to get like, I was like, okay, there's something else out there. So when I turned 18, I wanted to go out there and see what was out there, you know.
And did that involve like going to college or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went to Central Michigan University in Mount Pleasant, Michigan.
I don't know where, and that's.
It was in this part of Michigan, or
the middle.
I don't know if your viewers, in the middle, Central Michigan University. It was in Central Michigan.
I should listen better.
That's okay. So I went there, and as I was there, I heard, oh, there's this punk rock bar. Oh, punk rock bar there? Yeah, called the Foolery. In fact, I don't even know if that had any factored into me choosing that college. I think that was just happenstance that
Yeah.
that there happened to be this sort of punk bar, and I was like, punk bar. And when I got down there, I'm like, when I got to college, I was like, do you guys know about this punk bar and also where I could find some weed?
Yeah.
And all of that took about 2 hours to discern both mysteries. And that kind of set my college path into motion, you know. And so I would go to the Foolery, and I would be I went there and would go to shows, and they had $2 pitchers. And for some reason, I got stamped with a 21 stamp when I turned 18. When I was 18, and so I went. So I would just hang out at the Foolery all the time instead of going to class, and just sort of like just spend a lot of time like learning about punk rock and meeting new friends. And because I grew up in the middle of nowhere and a fairly strict environment, I didn't know how to handle my newfound freedom, or maybe I did know how to handle it. I knew how to, you know, but I didn't really apply myself in class.
Yeah.
I was irresponsible.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Happens to a lot of people.
You know, we were.
So you didn't finish college?
I did not finish college.
Yeah,
I did
neither.
1 year, and
that's
and I flunked out along with most of my whole floor in the dorm. You know, we all did very poorly.
So then all your parents you're cut off and you're all on your own working at the pizza place or whatever.
I started that later. I lived in Mount Pleasant, Michigan for another year. I lived there because I thought it was the greatest thing. I was like hanging out with all these punks and making new friends and taking acid and you know, just living the wild life. And and I had my hair, like I got a mohawk, and I had like the back was dyed blonde, and you know, I was just like, and I had like pierced my ears, and you know, and so I was kind of like, you know, and then I came home and my parents were just like, oh man, what happened to him?
We can't even take you out to eat.
Yeah. That was it. I took my dad, I got really mad at my dad one time because we were at the grocery store, and he just looked at me and he was just like not thrilled with the way I was looking at the time.
So up until then, there was no like I want to be in a band, I want to play guitar, or
Well, when I was in 8th grade, I wanted to play guitar. I wanted an electric guitar. And so I was looking at guitar magazines in the school library, and I remember even reading a long article about Al Di Meola, who I knew nothing about, but I read a long I do remember like reading a long article about Al Di Meola, and in the back I was looking at guitars, and I also saw what I knew I needed to have for some reason, and it was a Morley Power Wah Fuzz.
Okay.
For whatever reason, I thought I needed a Morley Power Wah Fuzz.
Did you get one?
Years later. So I got this guitar, and I would go to like on New Year's Eve. I think in most places this is traditional, where you would bang on pots and pans at midnight, like like in Chicago they shoot off guns or fireworks, but we were in the UP, so we would just go bang 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 bang, Happy New Year, and no one would hear you because we're out in the woods. Yeah. But you know, so on New Year's Eve I just took my guitar, just cranked it up to 10, and was just like, you know, like, and this would have been like 81, you know, so I invented no wave.
So you had
1981.
So you had a guitar as a teenager.
I had a guitar, and I was not very good.
Yeah, but nobody is.
Nobody's any. Nobody. That's why we're in electronic music.
Yeah, well, it's always weird when people get good at guitar and then they like can only like play like Blackbird or whatever, you know, like, or they just play covers and they never like write songs.
Right.
And then give a guitar to somebody that doesn't know how to play, they'll like make 6 tracks, you know, or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So like my brother and my friend were gonna have a band. We decided we're gonna have a band in 6th grade. My friend named it Dirt Shit, and I started trying to write a song.
Yeah.
And I still remember it. It was like, cruising down the highway, M28. You can really see us if you stay up really late. You may, you really might, 'cause we're shining bright.
It's pretty good. It's catchy.
Sixth grade, man.
Yeah, it's like a Kiss song or something.
Yeah. Cruising down the highway. I'm 28, so we lived on the highway. And if you stay up really late, you might be able to see us. Even though we weren't up.
It's a pretty good. I mean, the name is good. Wait.
And my friend made it up, Dirt Shit. And I found out there actually really was a band called Dirt Shit later.
But the other thing too. I mean, as you know, I work at a record store and I go through. Lately, it's CDs all day long.
Yeah.
And there was like a weird time period. I guess it was really. I guess it lasted for a while actually, where people just had really terrible names for bands. It lasted for a really long time.
Still kind of going on.
Yeah, I guess so. But like, I don't know if anybody would name their band Dirt Shit right now. Would they?
Well, I saw on a flyer the other night there was a band called, it was like that Fourth World thing. There was something like Ant Puke.
So, I guess it's kind
so I think that's like pretty in the realm of Dirt Shit, maybe.
Ant Puke.
I don't know what that was. I was feeling kind of old because everything now is just like, it's confusing, right? Because it's like everything is just like letters and numbers and like, you know.
The font's too small. I can't even read it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it was like B to B. I guess I meant back to back, but I'm like, why are there 5 bands on this called B to B? But
how was it? You went to that?
We didn't go. It was unobtainium, sold out.
Oh, too bad.
So,
sorry.
But we when I got to Mount Pleasant, Michigan,
Dirt Shit had broken up.
Yeah, that lasted all of a day.
Okay.
You know, it never happened. It never materialized to any music actually being played.
Oh.
And we, but when I got to Mount Pleasant, when I was, there was this college bar called the Wayside Inn, and they had a thing called mock rock, which is like basically air band contests.
Okay.
And because I had like kind of a just a stupid look, I was going to be the singer of. We did a Dead Kennedys song, "Too Drunk to Fuck."
Okay.
And we just basically like didn't even try to lip sync properly. We just like knocked each other over and threw water on the audience and just basically like rolled around on the floor and did a bunch of stupid stuff. And everybody was like, "That was really good." And we went to the finals and we're like, "Okay." So that was my first time ever on a stage where I got the.
You got the bug.
I got the bug where I had the taste of being on stage. And I think I was on acid.
I wasn't there. I don't know.
Right.
So that I mean, those of you who haven't seen Magas play live, he really likes to perform, and you can tell that he's enjoying himself. No matter what the venue, what the show, he'll be having a good time, and it usually translates into the crowd. So that to have this moment, it's memorable.
That was the first taste.
Showmanship
that I got, but honestly, I I've always been really shy. I'm a super shy person, right? So, I feel I've transcended this, but I grew up very shy.
Okay.
I was a super nervous, shy kid, and in my grade school that I talked about, I think I was voted like shyest kid in the school.
Oh.
So when I had the band Couch, I wasn't gonna sing. I was just gonna play guitar, but I wrote a song for my partner to sing. And he's like, "This is your song. You sing it." And when I was in 6th grade, we would do these spring concerts, and we were singing the Beatles' "Let It Be," and we would all sing together. But they were looking for somebody to solo, and I came out and I just did it super like I was like, "When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me," and I did it like super like, and they're like, "Whoa, Jim, you're really good. Come here, like, will you do that again?" And I was like, "No." And I chickened out and went back into the fold, and I wouldn't solo. I got too scared. But when Pete was like, "This is your song, you sing it," I'm like, I am not gonna chicken out like I did in 5th grade.
Oh.
I'm like, I am gonna fucking go for it, and I did, and I haven't really looked back since.
All right. Well, that's I don't know if that doesn't explain anything, or I guess it does. Or I understand.
I didn't want to be scared.
A little more.
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah.
What kind of explanation are you looking for?
I don't know. Just to understand your you. I don't know, man. I don't. This whole thing is just we're just talking. I was just.
Yeah.
These are things I've known you for a while. I didn't know this. This part of you. I just can't imagine a little shy Jim.
Yeah,
that's not something
I guess, yeah, I was pretty shy. I still am in a lot of social situations, but I guess you know, you have to take the motto like feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
You know, but when I am on stage, it's almost like playing a role in a way. Like I don't feel like I'm like Jim getting up on stage and being Jim. I feel like I'm playing this part of this other thing, and playing this part of this other thing almost feels like kind of supernatural. Like I'm like controlling the elements somehow, just like
Puppet master.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, and it's just like it feels confrontational, and you're just like trying to just like,
because I mean you're not a you do electronic music and noise and all this stuff, but it's like a performance. It's not just like sit up there with your machines. I mean, I'm sure you've done that too, but so
I did do that. Like
it's different.
and like I did that actually through most of the teens, the 20 teens, and I decided like, you know, I'm getting a little older. I'm gonna stop jumping around like an idiot, and I'm just gonna like try to get a little more like creative with the music and just do this and maybe do some soundtracks and stuff like that. And I did that, and then I just kind of got the urge to start singing again.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing that now. Because I felt like, you know, people would be like, but you're denying your destiny, your natural thing. And I'm like, yeah, that's okay though. It's like, this is what I'm doing now, and who cares?
Yeah. I mean, well, you're a performer, and there's not a lot of people that can really like let their hair down and just do that. So, you know.
Well, that's what I figured, that like even if I'm like, there's nobody who can be a better me than me. So it's like, you know, and plus I would rather be bad than boring, you know. So I decided to like.
That sounds like a Frank Zappa quote or something like a.
Yeah, I
I don't know who.
I decided that like I would rather be like a mediocre singer than, you know, and I don't think I'm a mediocre singer, but I would rather like do something stupid or just like loud or like than to just be another person who makes competent music that's indistinguishable from the next guy.
Yeah, there's competent. Ugh.
Yeah, I don't want to be competent, man.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Or you know,
because I mean, like, wow, this sounds really good. It sounds just like blah blah blah. Like you can get as super good and then sound exactly like Aphex Twin or something that, and it's like, who wants to be a copy or like a sound alike, or you know, and everybody's got great gear these days, so it's like everybody has amazing gear, which I think is great. It's kind of like, I think, ushered in something of a renaissance maybe, but who's using all this great gear and singing? Well, I don't know, maybe there's a handful, maybe
not a lot.
Yeah, so I decided I would rather be unique, and that's my strength, to be unique. So I went back to, now I'm singing again. I haven't debuted my return to the microphone, but that's coming.
It's coming. It'll be back.
It's coming.
And you said you
better than ever.
But you said you retired Magas.
I did. Yeah.
So what is it called? What is it now?
James Marlon Magas.
James Marlon Magas.
Yeah, I'm working on my James Marlon Magas debut album. Because I'm also using new gear too. So it's gonna be a debut album.
Okay.
Because like I sold all my fallback stuff, like the 808, the Juno, and the ARP, and all that kind of stuff, and I got like other gear. Maybe that's not even important, but I decided to be James Marlon Magas, and it's kind of like a Magas 2.0, but I lengthened the name.
No, it's flows right off the tongue.
Yeah, my name is James Marlon Magas, but you can call me Magas.
Yeah,
in 2016, the name was up for grabs. But I got the fuck out. Now there ain't no doubt who's got the balls and who's got to go without two. Well, that's you. So you better look out. I make them scream and shout. Okay.
All right, we got it, and it's like a disco rap record, or
that was an excerpt of a rap that's on the record. There is a rap on there. It's not disco rap. It's just rap. It's hip hop.
Okay.
Avant-garde hip hop.
I'm curious.
And that's not funny. Yeah. You'll hear it.
I know.
2024, man.
Yeah, you gotta prepare.
Yep. I forgot to put my phone on Do Not Disturb.
That's okay.
That's all right.
Now I lost my train of thought. So you were
rap.
No,
Singing.
I got that part.
Yeah.
But we were talking about how you got your the taste of performance.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned a band called Couch.
Yeah.
Was that before Lake of I get them.
Yeah, it was before. Yeah, Couch started in 1992,
So that's post college.
post college. Okay, so
Several years.
I flunked out of school. Lived, kicked around Mount Pleasant for a year. I worked at a Burger King. Almost got fired for having a mohawk. Lived around Mount Pleasant. Then my dad said, maybe you should. I'm living in Fort Worth, Texas. Maybe you want to move down here, establish residency, and then go to college down here.
It's cheaper.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, that sounds good. I moved to Fort Worth. Wasn't really my wheelhouse
Yeah.
at the time, and I think
Yeah.
it's got a lot cooler since I left. But at the time, I mean, there were some pretty amazing things. I saw Sun Ra down there. That was a pretty formative experience in my youth, when I was 21, and I met him. He took me backstage and everything, and that was cool. So that was like really cool. And there was like there was a little Arts Alliance. Anyway, Fort Worth there were some cool things about it, but overall, I just wanted to go back to Michigan, and I did.
Let's hear. Can we hear the Sun Ra story? Is there like a
I can
longer
tell the
version?
Sun Ra story, yeah.
That's just for fun.
Yeah, I went to go see Sun Ra. He was kind of new to me at the time. I was 21,
So what year is this?
1988.
1988. Okay.
Yeah, and I was gonna go see Sun Ra at the Caravan of Dreams Jazz Theater in Fort Worth, Texas, and it was also at the time somebody introduced me to ecstasy, and this was at the time when it was very pure when it first hit the United States in Texas.
Yeah, it started.
Yeah,
kind of there.
in the Dallas area.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I tried ecstasy. I had this tablet. I didn't have any money, so I bought a tablet of ecstasy. It was like $20, which is a shit ton of money at the time. That would be like $100 now. And I went to go see Sun Ra and just had the time of my life. Just like he blew my mind, seeing the Sun Ra orchestra. And after the show, I went up to it wasn't even a merch booth. It was just they had the stuff on the side of the stage, and he had some records, and I only had like $10, or like I had no money to spend, but I could get one record, and I got one called Hidden Fire, and it had like a white. It was like in a rainbow disco sleeve with a blank white cover, and I said, "Hey," he came out, and I said, "Would you mind signing this?" And he signed it, in the blank white thing, and I said, I really liked the crowd pleasing, like more traditional numbers, but what I really liked was the wild experimental stuff you were doing. I don't even know if I had that verbiage to give him, but I said I really like the fucked up shit, or what. I don't know what I told him, how I phrased it, but and he says, "Why don't you come on backstage?" I was like, okay, and I went backstage with my girlfriend at the time, and we went backstage, and he just sat back there. It was just me and him and June Tyson and my girlfriend, and he was just telling me all kinds of things, there's he said musicians are always trying to tell me what they know. I'm more interested in what they don't know.
Yeah.
And he would say, like, there's good angels in the world and bad angels in the world. I'm a bad angel because good angels can only do good, but bad angels can do both bad and good. So I'm a bad angel. I get more done that way. And just like little nuggets, little sound bites like that. And then I remember I left, and on the way out I saw some of the members of the orchestra in the street, and I smoked a joint with them in a little alcove in the rain, and they said, "Oh, we're not. He doesn't let us do this. We're not allowed to be doing this, but don't tell anybody." I mean, sorry, I've told everybody now, but
Yeah, I'm sure he probably knows.
yeah. He's deceased now.
I mean, and that's dangerous in Texas, though. Smoking a doobie, you'd get thrown in jail.
All these things that I am telling you about are dangerous, and I don't recommend to any youth out there that they do any of these things that I'm describing on this video. I mean, look what happened. I flunked out of school. So
I don't know.
I just want to be full disclosure here, folks. Full disclosure.
So you were in Texas for a while, staying with your dad, and
Yeah.
just
I
going to
managed
shows.
a balloon store.
A balloon, and you made balloon sculptures.
Balloon arrangements. balloon arrangements, and I would, you know, it was like kind of like instead of flower arrangements, you would make balloon arrangements, because I had you know, I just kind of went door to door with my resume, and they said they hired me to be a manager of this store for $4 an hour
Yeah.
in the town center mall in Fort Worth, Texas, and I would be making these balloon arrangements, and one day the man, you know, and I would just be up, I would show up for work, and I'd been asleep. I think I got about like 0.25 hours of sleep the night before, and I would come into work, and she'd be like, "Jim, can I speak to you in my office?" And and I'd be like, "Okay," and she'd be like, "You know, when I'm sitting, when I'm watching you make these balloon arrangements, I just look at you, and it seems like you're not even there. It seems like you're somewhere else."
Yeah, that's Southern charm. You
Go
know.
figure.
They really have
Go figure.
a way with words down there, you know.
Yeah. So yes, I so anyway, I managed the balloon store, and I wrote a song. It was called Balloons Fantastique, and I wrote a song. I started writing a song for Lake of Dracula years later called Balloons Fantastique, and I changed the word balloons to blues. So it was Blues Fantastique, but all those lyrics were actually originally about the balloons, but then it became a more like relatable thing where it's actually blues, you know. So if you listen to the lyrics, it was about balloons, you know, curly ribbon hanging down. You know, she showed me a little trick, which that's a lyric, and it was actually how to curl the ribbon.
Oh yeah, with
curly
the scissors.
Yeah, with scissors, yeah. And I learned how to do that in Fort Worth, Texas, in 1988. In addition to,
When was the last time you curled a ribbon?
I have not curled a ribbon. I probably did it at Christmas time, pretending to be Santa Claus. Ooh. In the basement.
So
Listeners, there is a Santa Claus.
So that was just a stupid question, but
It was a good question, actually. One of the best questions I've been asked in all the times that I've been interviewed.
Oh jeez. So Fort Worth, no bands, no
bands,
nothing.
no bands. I did get involved with some film programming. You know, I wanted to have a band, but when I lived in Ann Arbor, I still wanted to have a band. You know, the guitar that I got in 8th grade, I think I traded. I think I sold that guy to a guy in the '86 for like $80 in a bag of weed.
Yeah.
And because I was just like, I'm just no good at this, and I sold it. Sorry, Mom, if you're watching. But then I later, and when so I was living in Fort Worth, Texas, and I had this friend from school, Tracy, and she said, "Hey, it seems like you don't really like it down there in Texas. Do you want to move to Ann Arbor, live with me?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And I jumped at the chance. And then I was going to this record store, School Kids Records. I later ended up working there, but it was a great record store, and I was learning about all kinds of stuff. And I got a guitar and an amp and a Morley Power Wah Fuzz. Finally got that Morley Power Wah Fuzz, because it was a fuzz pedal and a wah wah pedal. Yeah, a Power Wah Fuzz. And I would play guitar. Oh yeah. When I got the guitar in 8th grade, another thing that I did in 1986 was I started playing the guitar with a fruitcake tin. Like it was like you have a fruitcake and it had like a tin on a metal box. And I started going like almost using it like a violin bow. Like Jimmy Page, in Song Remains the Same,
Yeah.
And I started doing that, or just like banging on like tang 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 tang, and like, and then I heard Sonic Youth in Marquette. I had a friend that worked at a record store, and I'm like, oh, this is actually like a legit thing that you can do, like bang on guitars. Like I thought I was like inventing something, and I'm like, oh, people actually do this,
It's hard to invent stuff.
Yeah, but I thought I was.
Yeah.
I thought I was.
It's a spontaneous thing.
Yeah.
But so you how long did you last in Fort Worth?
A year.
And then you're just like,
Yeah.
So you got your residency and then split.
Yeah. No. I did. I got the residency and split. Yeah. I think I made. Yeah. I was also living with my dad, and I was 21, and just going out and
Yeah.
partying, and I don't think we were just like it was just too late for me to live with my dad.
It wasn't gonna work.
Yeah. He's a great dad. I'm a great son, but we weren't jiving at the time.
But I think
so
also,
well.
a place like that, it's hard maybe if you're not in school at that, or I guess if you can meet people at clubs and stuff, but it's not. I don't know how you would get like a good social network.
I did not have a great social network there. It was like I was kind of like, my stepbrother who I knew. He said, "Why did you move where you don't know anybody?" And I was like, "Yeah, why did I do that?"
Yeah.
I was just trying something new, taking a chance, expanding my horizons, and I just it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I discovered the Butthole Surfers there. That was really cool.
Yeah.
My stepbrother. Had some cool Butthole Surfers videos that we would watch at his place.
Big Texas band.
Yeah, and I used to see Mr. Peppermint, Gibby's dad, on the local cable access show.
Okay.
He was like a Mr. Rogers type character with he had like a peppermint suit, like a red and white. So
I didn't know that.
yeah, so the Butthole Surfers were kind of a big deal, and I've been talking to somebody recently about them, and they were like really kind of an underrated. Like when you think about all the great bands of the '80s, like the Butthole Surfers were definitely one of them.
Well, see, I'm a little bit distorted view because I'm from Texas, so
Right.
and I'm from San Antonio, and they were huge.
San Antonio.
Everybody, it's like that's like the first band you talk about when you're like dropping, who do you like? Oh, Butthole Surfers is like that's
Right.
like the, so I'm it's not as it was popular in my peer group.
Yeah.
Like, you always had like, when you'd be like in second or third grade and you had like an older cousin that had Butthole Surfer tapes or whatever, and like, so it was they're good. If you don't know Butthole Surfers,
Yeah.
there's the window's open. You can hear the motorcycle passing by.
Yeah.
But so Tracy brought you to Ann Arbor,
Yep.
and you went straight to live with her,
Yep.
and she just, okay, you can move in with me.
Yep.
And are you this whole time? Do you have like a car, your own car?
No car.
So how did you get to? You got like a ride? Someone picked you up, or?
I used to hitchhike around Michigan. So I used to hitchhike, but I would take the bus. I would take the bus to work. I worked at a pizza place called Tower Inn Pizza, and I delivered pizza in Ypsilanti, Michigan.
So they had like a car for the place that you would drive around.
Yeah, they had trucks. So I would deliver pizzas, and I did that, and then I went to live in Ypsilanti, Michigan, and I did that, and then I moved to Ann Arbor. I decided I wanted to live in Ann Arbor. I quit the pizza place.
So what was it the same? Did it have the same like a cachet, or I don't know what word you would use, but it's Ann Arbor's kind of known as like a music town, or at least I would think of it like a record store kind of college town.
The legacy of like the Stooges was heavy in that town. The Stooges, MC5, but
was that a factor in you going there, or was just your friend lived there? Or
my friend lived there.
Okay.
Yeah, my friend lived there, and she said, "Hey, do you want?" And I was just like anything to get out of Texas, and she was nice, She was cute too. That didn't hurt.
But did you have like a goals, or you were just like
goals
farting around?
We're not going to talk about goals.
Well, I mean, no, but I mean, did you have like you're like, I want to go to school, or I want to like do.
The goal was just to get out of Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay.
I was miserable. Like, my dad and I were kind of fighting. I love him, but it was clear that it was not really a workable arrangement.
Yeah.
I also had a girlfriend from Michigan that came to live with us for a while, and that didn't work out. The balloon store went out of business. I sprained my ankle. I had a cast on my ankle. I was like walking around in 110-degree heat with a cast on my ankle, like job hunting with on crutches with my shirt all sweaty, and I was working at Eckerd Pharmacy, and just like it was just kind of like, my dad was great, but I think he was getting sick of this guy with no goals and just being hungover 21-year-old, and
So you were just like going out and hanging out.
Yeah. Yeah, and he would understandably not like me not hanging out till 5 a.m.
Yeah, yeah. And
And
where
when
would
I
you?
had to be to work at 6 a.m. You know,
What was the big? So you just like go to people's houses and like smoke pot and listen to music, or
I would do that, but actually one of the yeah, I would just sometimes, I didn't really have any friends per se, not too many good friends. So I did have some friends. I started making friends just before I left,
Yeah.
honestly, because
Yeah.
I had already made the plan to leave, and then I'm like, oh, now I'm making friends. Should I
yeah,
stay? I wasn't gonna stay. I just decided to stick with my plan and
yeah.
and leave. But I was starting to make friends, and actually, I remember I went to a blues club on was it the west side? It was at a neighborhood they called Stop Six. They called it Stop Six because you would stop 6 bullets with your body. And it was kind of a rough neighborhood, and I would go to this blues club there called the Bluebird. I don't know if it's still a rough neighborhood. It was then. And I remember there was this guy, he went by the nickname Shadow, and Shadow told me, man, you can come and live with me. You don't have to put up with your dad's bullshit, man. And I was like, all right. I was like, Dad, I'm going to go live with Shadow, and, and
That didn't work out.
no. Probably would have been a mistake, but it didn't work out. So I left, and then I went to go live with Tracy, and eventually Tracy got sick of me too, and she kicked me out too. And I had to go live with some.
So when did you like decide like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do this music thing? Because I mean, it seems like it's become like what you do.
Yeah.
It-
So
was there a point that
I
happened?
decided I got a guitar. I'm like, I want to get a guitar, and I started doing like I was doing something similar to what I was doing with the fruitcake tin with a
Okay.
slide. I had a
Okay.
glass slide,
Okay.
so I was just like ting 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 and like, just playing, not getting very good conventionally, and I was trying to start a band, and then a guy stole all my stuff. A guy stole all my guitar and amp and Morley Power Wah Fuzz, and a guy that we were living with. His name was, I won't say his name on the air, but
Why not?
yeah.
Is he gonna come after you or what?
No, but he stole all my shit, and then so then I was like, well, I don't have any money to replace all this stuff. Anyway, then I stopped. At one point, I stopped drinking and taking drugs, and I got sober, and then I started just like really getting curious about music. I started drinking, like I was drinking a lot of coffee, like triple espresso, quadruple espressos, and I would just run around, and I would go to the record store, and suddenly, I wouldn't say I had money, but I had a little money since I wasn't spending it all on
Yeah.
drugs and beer and
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
and so I started having money, and then I was getting into I was reading Forced Exposure and getting curious about experimental music, and then I decided that I was then I got a guitar. That's right, I got a guitar and amp to replace the one that was stolen, and later, but like, okay, so I quit doing drugs and all that stuff, and then I just sort of had this real energy, like that same curiosity that I had when I was in the UP.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just felt like there's got to be more out there, and I was kind of discovering like more than what I was being surrounded by, which was like, there were some really great bands like in Ann Arbor, like the Laughing Hyenas, they were some of my favorite bands and everything, and oh yeah, that's right. This preceded me getting sober. I was hanging out with the Laughing Hyenas a lot, and I met those guys. I ended up smoking a joint with John Brannon behind the Blind Pig. There was a bar there, and I was like, "Where do you live?" "Oh, I live here." "Where do you live?" I live a block away from you. Hey, you want to hang out?" And so we started hanging out, and I started hanging out with John and Larissa from the Laughing Hyenas, and we would just have these backyard jams, these back porch jams, and I was like still no good at guitar. And like so we had like an acoustic guitar, and I like blah 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 blah, like tune the low and just be like blah 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 blah, and like we'd be dancing around on the porch and like singing like stupid songs and all this stuff. And I'm like, man, these guys are like some of my favorite musicians, and they're like responding to the stupid shit that I'm doing on the back porch, you know. Like I think that maybe I could, you know, like clearly, you know, and we're having fun and we jammed together in the basement, and I, you know, and I kind of like just felt like, man, I think I could really do this, you know. And I remember like walking with this guy, and I was like, you know, I think I could I think I want to have a band. And he's like, you? Maybe if you like grew your hair and got some contact lenses.
Oh, jeez.
And I was like, fuck
Here
you.
we go.
Yeah, I'm like, it's on, you know, like when somebody tells you can't do something, then you're like, I'll show you.
Yeah.
You know, like revenge.
So this
So
was just pure, just hanging out, just joy, having a
just
good time.
hanging out, joy. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't, you know. And Larissa told me something really important. She said, you don't have to know how to play the instrument. You only have to know how to play your own songs.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. And that kind of jived with what Sun Ra said. Musicians are always trying to tell me what they know. I'm more interested in what they don't know.
Yeah.
And so I kind of like, I was like, all these stupid musicians, they're learning all this shit so they can sound like a fucking like guitar pro, like, you know, like you can just like sound like anything. You can tune the guitar and just it can sound like anything, and you can do anything. There are no rules. Like, and somebody said, oh yeah, like No Wave. I'm like, what? No Wave? What's that? Like, oh, you know, like this No New York album. And I'm like, you must know that. And I'm like, no, I don't know that. And they played that for me, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is like kind of similar to what I'm thinking. Yeah, exactly. And so then I, like I said, I got sober, and I started going to the record store and started reading Forced Exposure all the time.
So this is mid-90s by now.
No, this is early 90s.
Early
It's
90s.
like 90, 91, 92.
Okay.
And I discovered Japanese noise, and that for me was like a huge revelation, because that even took like the idea of not doing man, you really do not need to know how to play your instrument.
That's like boredoms or
yeah, like boredom, Hanatarash and boredoms and violent onsen geisha, Hijo Kaidan, CCCC, Masana, incapacitants, Aobe, who made like just amplified water. And I'm like, man, you don't have to know anything. Like you can do, you can really do anything, and it really kind of democratized everything. Like punk rock was like 3 chords, and I even had trouble with those. So I was like, this noise shit is the way, because this is like, and you just hear it, and it just sounded like the world was being destroyed. And I'm like, man, this is what I want to do. This sounds like, this is just like utter tyranny. This is like my fantasy of just like having the loudest sound that's just going to just crack the earth in two. And I was like, this is what I wanted to do, even though I didn't know how to do it.
Yeah. So, so what happened? I mean, you were discovering this through this record store that you mentioned earlier. What was the name of it?
School Kids.
School Kids. So somebody there was importing these records.
Yeah.
And you were getting them, and
yeah.
Meanwhile, playing on the back porch with some friends that were in a pretty successful band.
I quit doing that because I like.
They still smoked pot and you didn't, or something. Or?
Well, more than smoking pot, but you know, I wouldn't say I still hung out with John.
Yeah.
You know, because we were neighbors and still good friends, and our friendship transcended the whole like drug thing.
Yeah.
But in general, I decided it was probably a good idea to quit hanging out with certain people, because it was like leading to a path of self-destruction.
Oh, so there was heavy drugs around.
There were heavy drugs around. Yes, it was in the
scary.
In the early '90s, it was like a pretty bad. You know, it was a pretty dark time. So I decided that it was best to separate myself from that particular.
Did you have like a moment that you saw something that you didn't want to see, or was it just an overall?
You know, I had. Well, at the time, I had a girlfriend who was drinking a lot, and I decided, I'm like, what? You know, how do I deal with this? How do I deal with this person that's like drinking, you know, like getting shit-faced all the time
Yeah.
when I was doing the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
How do I deal with their, and
Yeah.
somebody said, well, you got to look at yourself, man.
Yeah.
You can't control other people. You can only control what you're going to do. What are you going to do about yourself? And I was like, oh, wait a minute. I'm
Yeah.
doing all these stupid things. And I was like, oh, but yeah, you're right. I can't change other people, but I can change myself. And so I decided to quit doing all those stupid things, And then, yeah.
And then the coffee experiment happened.
Yeah, the coffee experiment happened. Don't do drugs. Just drink, like, ridiculous, inhuman amounts of caffeine.
So it's like record store discoveries, and like you would go home and play by yourself with your play your guitar. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes, I would go home and play by myself. And so I did try to join some, I came up with these compositions. I lived with this guy, Ben Miller, from, he was in Destroy All Monsters.
Okay.
The
Art rock band.
Yeah, so he was an experimental guitarist and multi-instrumentalist.
Okay.
And he was like, hey, man, if you want to straighten your life out, come live with me, get out of that house you're in, because I was really trying to get away from people who I felt like, like it wasn't their fault that I was, but I thought a change of scenery would be smart, and that turned out to be the best decision. And so I went to live with him, and I started making, and he told me I could use this amp that he had. I bought it from him, this Roland Jazz Chorus amp. And I started making these songs that were really quite terrible. But I recorded them, and then I was like, I should start a band, And this is kind of like, and I hadn't quite discovered noise yet, but I was like, I tried to answer like band wanted. I was still doing like weird like slide guitar, fucked up kind of noisy guitar kind of stuff. I was into Fred Frith, who would play like guitar with like glass and stuff. Okay. And I tried to one time I talked myself up, and there was a local band called Craw, and they were kind of like a heavy experimental band from Cleveland that had moved to Ann Arbor, and somebody had touted me as this like a new experimental guitarist. And probably because I had touted myself as this,
okay.
and I played with them.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, what do you do? Like some kind of like Einstürzen Neubaut and shit. And I'm like, yeah. And so I did that, and then after the gig, none of them would even look at me.
Oh, geez.
So,
so success.
Yeah. So that didn't go over so well. And then another time, I answered another ad, like band member wanted, and it was like this band, Whirling Road. They're called Whirling Road, and maybe they became Whirling Road. Maybe they weren't Whirling Road yet, and they were looking for a guitarist, and I came over there and I played them some of my compositions. They went like, dee 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 dee. And then like I can kind of remember how they went actually, and they were going, man, that shit's really cool, but and the guy genuinely liked it, but he's like, I like what you're doing, but I don't think it's gonna work in this band.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, no harm, no foul.
Yeah.
Like, thanks for having me over, and then I heard noise, and I'm like, oh man, and then I would bring noise CDs to parties, and I'd be like, who wants to start a band like this?
Yeah.
But not me. People just walk away.
But what were these other people into? Just what was the thing at the time there?
They were into just like
local indie bands,
like Unrest and Pavement, and Green Day, and like bands on Lookout Records, and like Jawbreaker, and like Jawbox and Jawbone and Jawhammer, and and the John Spencer Blues Explosion, and
so the like indie rock heyday. When the indie started selling records.
Yeah, it was the year punk broke. Yeah. And Sonic Youth, of course, and but the kids were like into like Butthole Surfer. Oh, Jesus Lizard. Everybody was into Jesus Lizard, and and Butthole Surfers, and Alice Donut and stuff like that. so nobody wanted to have a noise rock band until, or a noise band until one time I was walking down the street and this guy, Pete Larson, he's like, "Hey man, you the guy that wants to start the band?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then we talked about all the local college rock bands we hated in town, and we bonded over our hatred of other bands, and we decided that we were going to have a band.
And that was the start of
Couch.
Okay.
That was like 92.
So that was just you two.
Just the two of us. We started. I was playing drums with this other guy, and we started playing together. His name was John, and we started playing together. And I was like, "Yeah, hey John, I found a guitarist." You know, this guy, this guy Pete. And then soon after that, Pete was like, "Man, you got to fire that guy." So then, because Pete had this guy Charlie, who he knew from Mississippi, who was going to play drums for us. So we like I was given the task to fire John.
Was your guy?
He was my guy. I turned my back on my own guy that we were in it, and then I immediately sold him out to play with Pete. And
it's rough out there.
yeah, it's a cold world. And
damn.
And so I.
Did he stop talking to you after that completely, or?
No, we remained friends.
Yeah,
we did the first couch gig with him.
Oh.
We did the first couch gig with him, and then Pete made me fire him just before we recorded. Oh. And but he did say that I heard the story around town as he quit because we were forcing him to drum beneath his ability.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, it's everybody walked away.
Everybody
feeling
wins.
Good. Yeah, yeah, everybody wins.
And so this starts Couch, and it ended up that you put out a few records as Couch. How did that? You just we're gonna put out a record, or somebody said we want to record your record, or how did it work?
Well, Pete said. Well, when we played Pete said I want to start a label, which was Bulb. Yeah. Well, no. He said I want to start a label. And so I had this idea. I said, well, to put out Couch. And he had another band called Prehensile Monkey-Tailed Skink. And I was like, well, Pete, why don't, and they were kind of crazy. And I was like, why don't we form a label, an actual label, and put out both bands on the same label? It's like, yeah, man, good idea. Yeah. And because he was going to form a label for Couch and a label for Skink, I guess. And I'm like, why don't we just start a thing and and I had just been to Sun Studios, and I was like, okay, I had this idea to rip off the Sun logo, but put a light bulb instead of the sun, because the sun was always eternal, but a bulb will burn out after a while, and so we called it Bulb. Okay. And then we started Bulb, and we started putting out other records, and then.
And you're just going to the pressing plant in Detroit, or
no, United,
Memphis,
Tennessee.
So you would send off DAT files or something, or do you remember how you did it?
We would send off
reel to reels.
No, it was DATs.
They're like VCR tapes looking things.
No, they were like little tiny.
So you would go to like a studio and have it recorded.
Oh, it was reel to reel. And so we went to Ben Miller. We had Ben Miller, who I'd lived with previously, and we went to him. He had a thing called Flooding Basement Studios, and it was in his basement, and we recorded with Ben.
Yeah,
and it was funny because we recorded our first EP, and we went back to mix it the next week, and he said, "I don't know how to tell you guys this, but." Nothing recorded onto tape last week, so we had to do it all over again. And we're sure that the best take got away.
I bet.
The second one was not nearly as good. It was the first take, of course, that was the better one. At least that's the way we. Oh man, that was the good one.
Yeah, yeah. Who knows?
But we were pretty happy with how it came out, and I was just blown away. Like when I got the first 7-inch, I'm like, this is my music on a record.
Yeah.
This is like. And I put it on. I'm like, oh, this is blowing my mind. That's my music on a record.
Yeah. And were you like playing shows before you did the record thing, or?
Yes.
Like a lot of them, or just?
No. We came out with the record pretty quickly.
So putting the record was the goal somehow.
Yeah, that was the goal. Like we wanted to do it, and we had the record out. I think we formed in fall of of '92, and we had the record out and by spring of '93.
Oh, okay, so that's pretty
So it's
quick.
pretty fast, yeah.
And that's a what? So this is what year is this now? 94 or something?
93.
3 or 4.
93, and we started playing some shows, and we're kind of hated.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people didn't like us because like those guys, that's not even music. Like those guys don't even practice. Like we did practice, but people didn't think we practiced because it was just sounded like a band that didn't practice to them because we were just like.
And so, can you just yeah, that's a pretty good description though, huh? But so, like, give a little more technical as like a description of if they went to go see a show, you would be playing a guitar.
Well, I had a guitar.
And
I had the low E tuned down, so it was like basically flapping like.
Okay.
And I didn't have a high E string.
Okay.
And like not that I was any like great guitar preparer. I just like the string broke and I didn't replace it,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
and I wasn't that good to have that many strings anyway. So and I thought that the low flapping E kind of gave it a cool sound, like it was like blah.
Yeah.
And so I would do that, and I had a little keyboard, a little keytar that I would step on with my boots, like, and I would like step on it. And I had a saxophone that was kind of broken, so it sounded like a dying duck. It was just like blah, and then I didn't know how to do noise. In fact, I was a little nervous to play with Pete because he told me about his former bandmate Ricky, and he said. And Pete was like, "Yeah, well, like, what do you do, man? Like, how do you make your noise? That you want to have a noise band? How do you do it?" And I'm like, and he's like, because my old bandmate, like Ricky, he had this like machine that he made that made noise and everything. I was like, okay. And I was like,
Yeah.
I went home that night like, fuck, I don't have a noise machine. I don't even know how to make noise. I'm gonna be found out a fraud. I don't know how to make noise, and I don't even know how to do it. And so I ended up going to. But the one noisy thing that I did find out is you could have a radio where you could like tune it to static. So I bought like this little radio. When I was working at Harry's Army Surplus, I had this revelation like, wait, I could get a radio, and they make this like mini jack to 1/8 inch adapter. I could plug the radio into an amp and just change stations. So I did that.
I think that was like that guy did it from Cannes, right, for a while, right? He played the radio.
Yeah, I guess he did, but he played shortwave.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Jake.
Jackie.
Yeah, Jackie. Yeah. And so he did that. So I just played like static, and but mainly we weren't even really doing noise.
What did the other guy do?
Noise. He just did like crazy guitar. He was like the guitarist.
Two guitar players.
No bass player, and that was kind of legitimized. By bands like the Gories, who were like kind of like a great, I don't want to pigeonhole them as a garage rock band, and the Gibson Brothers, who were like kind of like, but these were all kind of almost like rootsy sort of bands, and so it was like the Gories and the Gibson Brothers, like they had two guitars and no bass, so we're like, we don't, like that kind of opened up the thing, like we didn't need a bass, like who needs a bass player? Why do you need a bass?
Yeah. And so you didn't.
He did play bass sometimes, though.
Did you have rhythm tracks, or was there drums or anything?
We had drummers, and we kept going. We kept burning through drummers like socks because, like, Charlie moved away back to Mississippi or something, and so we tried to find a drummer, and we had another drummer, and he didn't work out, and we'd have another drummer, and it didn't work out. So the band was basically a duo with whatever drummer we could find, because we couldn't really find drummers that really like worked for us, so it was kind of regarded as a duo. And like when we took the picture for our record, it was just the two of us. Our records were just the two of us. So the drummer
was a hired gun.
The drummer hired. They were making dozens of dozens of nickels.
$13.
Yeah, $13 for the gig. I don't even know. We probably just kept it. I don't know, but we. Yeah, so the drummers were kind of like if you were going to be in Couch, you kind of had to know that you were relegated to subpar status if you're going to be the drummer. The drummer didn't get an equal say. In fact, we would say no cymbals, no, they had to play like blap 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 blap. They weren't allowed to do like fills were not allowed. You
So
weren't
just
allowed
straight beats.
no cymbals, no fills. You know, that was the forcing people to John was right. We were forcing him to drum beneath his abilities. We forced everyone to drum beneath their abilities.
Yeah.
And then one guy froze on stage and couldn't drum at all,
Hmm.
so he was out. And,
Oh, because he was like, "What are these guys doing?"
yeah, but we finally found a permanent drummer in Aaron Dillaway.
Okay.
Like we decided, like, okay, he's couch material. He's couch. He can be an equal member. So he was he kind of he was a young teen powerhouse, and he fit the bill. And I discovered him, or he discovered me. We found each other when I was working at I went to work for School Kids Records.
Okay.
And he used to come in there, and I used to turn all the kids onto noise. Like I'd be like, "Oh man, listen to this, listen to that," and I was like the noise.
What
purveyor.
would be your first the entry point? What would be the record you'd give them?
Well, I was turning them all onto like Carolina Rainbow or Hernia Milk Queen,
Oh, see,
Carolina,
I never heard of
Carolina
that.
Carolina Rainbow. I would give them like Hijo Kaidan, Incapacitants, Violent Onslaught, all the bands, CCCC, and all these bands, and I would I'd say and I was also Sun City Girls and weird rock bands, experimental rock bands like that. I was also given to people, and To Live and Shave in L.A. was a big one. That was a big hit. Harry Pussy, who were not noise, but they were like crazy experimental guitar, kind of hardcore sort of hybrid, just with a really unconventional guitar. It almost sounded like almost sounded like the Magic Band as filtered through hardcore or something like that. At least that's sort of how I sort of viewed it at the time. And so I was just I was discovering noise and just turning all the kids onto it at the time, and they're all really receptive. They're like, okay, we're not into the Jesus Lizard anymore. We're into this noise shit now, and then Andrew WK was a large consumer of the noise, so yeah. So all
these are part of the record store community that you began working there. What's it? I keep forgetting.
School Kids Records.
School Kids Records. Is it still there?
No. So I was kind of like a Pied Piper of noise.
Yeah. And the other people at the store, you were the noise guy, or were there other?
Well, there was the main store, and then there was like the annex.
Oh, okay.
And the annex was where all the indie rock
incense was burned.
Indie rock and alternative. What's that?
Where all the incense was burned. I don't.
There was no incense, but there was like that was where all the indie rock, like all the regular rock, like Elvis Costello and Bonnie Raitt and all that kind of stuff would be in the main store, and all the jazz was in the main store, and classical and country and all that stuff. But all the indie rock, which would include like Betty Severe and all that kind of stuff, and Pavement and all that, and Unrest would be in this store. But also the weird noise shit
I kind of like Unrest.
Would be in this store. What's that?
I kind of like Unrest.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're
No,
bad.
I know,
I'm just saying. But they weren't noise.
No.
Yeah, Unrest is fine, and a lot of those bands are fine.
Yeah. I'm just throwing in some stupid comments.
Yeah.
So these people are coming in that went on to do some pretty big things. It seems like.
Yeah.
And this is like 1993,
93 up until the time. Well, I quit working at School Kids because I was not the buyer, and also I was making $4 an hour.
Yeah. And then spending.
And
it
I
on
wanted
records.
a raise, and I didn't get the raise that I asked for, so I said, okay, I'm out, and I went to go work for Borders across the street. Borders was the big bookstore and all that, and my boss there, Charlie Murphy, if you're watching, gave me the freedom to basically have a little store within a store at Borders. So I had like a little, like a gondola of music where all the weird shit, and basically all the kids that would come and see me at School Kids started coming to Borders across the street. They would, I had more freedom because I was actually able to, rather than say, hey, order this noise, and have the guy get the wrong stuff that was on sale.
Yeah.
Like, wait, what? This is noise. He's like, this is noise. I'm like, but this isn't the noise that I wanted. This is different noise that was on sale. It was like a distributor that went out of business or something. And like I need specific
Yeah.
thing. So then I became a buyer at Borders, and then I was able to order all kinds of weird shit, and I was able to even be more of a Pied Piper.
And so you had like a little following that would like come in and buy all this stuff.
Yes, it's
How long did that go on?
that went on. I worked there 94 to 95, and then in 95 I decided to move to Chicago because I started when Pete Larson was in Germany. I started playing music with some other people, and they were all Chicago people. And then when Pete came back from Germany, we kind of butted heads a little bit, and I moved. He wanted the label back because I was running the label. He wanted the label back, and I'm like, okay, this town ain't big enough for the both of us. And rent was cheaper in Chicago, and I knew people that lived in Chicago, and I had lots of people that respected me in Chicago and wanted to play music and stuff. So I'm like, well, I'm going to go to Chicago, and then there I met Weasel Walter, who said, hey, do you want to do couch here in Chicago? Like do couch with me?
Yeah.
And I was like, sure, but let's call it something different. Okay. And so then that became Lake of Dracula.
Okay. So that's 1995 now.
Yeah.
And so you're up and moved later. No more Borders.
No more Borders.
Was he upset?
Who?
When you left Charlie Murphy?
I don't think so.
No, he just would
I mean, I don't know. I mean,
fly away.
Look in the Facebook comments of this when it gets posted on
Is he gonna watch?
Facebook.
Maybe.
He might like. Charlie, were you upset when I left? I mean, I feel like I was on the phone a lot with people from Chicago. Like I would do collect calls to Chicago when I was at work, and I was still working with my hands and legit, but I was probably like my head was in Chicago, and so like I think I was a great employee, but once I decided I was going to move, I was probably a little checked out. Sorry, Charlie.
Yeah. Well, it happens.
Yeah.
And so in Chicago, did you get a job, or you try to do music, or?
I was going to transfer to the Borders there, and when I was on tour with Couch, we went on tour with Couch and Duotron. We toured the West Coast, and then I was going to land in Chicago. And I remember I had a good haircut when I started the tour, and I felt like I was like not weird enough for everybody else, and so I like kind of like clipped it a little bit, and then I showed up in Chicago like hoping to get my Borders transferred, and they were like kind of looking at my hair and like thinking like maybe not, and so I didn't get the transfer.
Devastating.
But then so I went to go work for a place called Coconuts.
Okay, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, and I worked at Coconuts for a while, and I didn't really work out so well at Coconuts.
Okay.
I just wasn't cut out for Coconuts.
I think I have some records with that price tag on it or something.
Yeah, it was a chain store, and I didn't. I was walking down State and Division in Chicago, and I had my resumes, and I saw this record store. It was called like Music Land or Music World or something like that. And I looked, and I was like, should I apply there? Because if I apply there, I'm probably going to get the job, and I don't know if this job's going to be right for me. And I applied, and I got the job, and it wasn't right for me.
Yeah.
And the district manager even said, he's like, James, I'm looking at your hair and your glasses. This is a corporate environment. Are you sure this is going to be right for you? And I was like, yes, sir, absolutely. Yes, I think I can totally fit in, I'm ready to make a change and blah, 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 whatever bullshit you say in an interview to get the job, I said. And I got the job, and then it didn't work out. Then I ended up going back to Borders. They said, if anything opens up, we'll let you know. And I kept checking back, and finally they had a position for me, so I went to Borders.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the same freedom that I had. And, they said, you can't just order a bunch of weird shit here in Chicago. And I'm like, I know.
And at the time in Chicago, were you were just fully immersed in the noise scene? Were you aware of the other stuff going on? Was it like dance music? I mean, you think of Chicago, everybody that's not from Chicago, when they think of Chicago, they think of house music. Was that around you at all, or were you aware of it, or?
Well, when when I was in Ann Arbor, techno was like Jeff Mills was playing like at Nectarine Ballroom, and like so there were all these like raves and parties,
Yeah.
and I didn't have any interest in it. I thought
Yeah.
it was just stupid like glow stick music. I
Yeah.
thought it was just like I just thought it was stupid. And when I moved to Chicago, I knew that house was happening, and I just thought it was just like everybody dance now, dun dun
Yeah.
dun. I was just like, this is not really my thing, you
Yeah.
know. It's like I just thought it was just like, it just didn't strike me as
Same.
any good.
Yeah, I had the same.
Yeah, I just thought this music's terrible.
Yeah.
And
So it wasn't. There was no like a. At the time where your scene, it wasn't.
there was no
No
cross
overlap.
pollination between the rock world and
completely
and
separate.
completely separate.
Yeah.
You were in rock or you were in dance music, and I was in not rock, because I was against rock too.
But guitar music or something, or
Yeah, guitar like band based,
Yeah.
a band based world.
yeah,
Even though we were like I was in weird unconventional bands, it was still a band based world. You play on a stage with other musicians, you play with other bands that are stupid, but you're still playing in a band based world. Yeah.
there's no like DJs and stuff.
No,
Yeah,
no, that didn't happen.
until the late '90s for you,
The
probably.
late '90s, when after Lake of Dracula broke up.
So Couch stopped when you went to Chicago. Lake of Dracula started, and what it was sort of a similar thing, like you two guys with a guitar and rotating drummers, or
No, well, Weasel and I decided to start Couch without Pete, and Weasel was I saw Weasel play guitar by himself in Chicago in a solo version of the Flying Lutenbachers, and I was like, and Weasel was known as a drummer. He was a really great drummer in the Flying Lutenbachers, and also I knew him as a saxophone player. He's a very talented multi-instrumentalist, and I saw him play guitar, and I was like, fuck. Weasel is amazing on guitar. Like, I think I almost, as good of a drummer as he is, I think I even like his guitar playing better than his drumming, you know? And so when he offered to play guitar, I was like, yeah, Weasel's a fucking amazing guitarist.
yeah,
And then we needed to find a drummer, and I really liked Heather from the Scissor Girls, but I'm like, there's no way she'll do it. She's got the Scissor Girls. But let's ask her anyway. Hey, Heather, do you want to play drums? Yes, I'd love to. And we're like, oh, wow, we got my favorite drummer in Chicago to play drums for our new thing. And so we did, you know, I still had the mentality like you don't need a bass player, you know,
because you got your top string tuned real low.
well, I didn't play guitar.
Oh.
I was the singer. I was
Oh.
gonna like I stopped playing guitar in Couch. Pete was like, "Man, you suck at guitar. You're not playing guitar anymore." And I stopped playing guitar.
So
He's
you were
like,
the
"Plus, you got this heavy piece of wood in front of you, and you can't be restrained. Like, you gotta lose that shit." And I was like, "Okay." So I decided just to. In Lake of Dracula, I became just a full-on singer.
Okay.
Like I didn't play any instruments.
Frontman,
Frontman.
Sammy Hagar.
Yeah, yeah. I became a front man, and like I was like kind of excited about it because I never really was any good at an instrument. Although I played like interesting noise guitar and sort of played the AM radio and a bad saxophone and all this kind of stuff. Like I was kind of excited by the prospect of not having to carry shit around.
Yeah. You could just wait in the bus.
Yeah, yeah. I get to talk to audience members while everybody else breaks everything down and carries it to the van.
Finish your burger,
Yeah.
So, did you guys tour a lot, or was just
we
play around?
we did a West Coast tour. Like Couch did a West Coast tour, and Lake of Dracula did a West Coast tour. Only because based on the contacts that I had when I was in Couch, I decided I would just
Same people.
replicate that experience with Lake of Dracula using the same contacts. Give it a shout out to my friend Anthony Bedard, who was very instrumental in helping us with the West Coast, helping us set up a West Coast tour. So we went out west with Lake of Dracula, and I would have gone out east where things are closer together, but I just didn't know anybody out there.
Yeah.
I didn't have any kind of like contacts, and so
You wouldn't just call you had to like call the record store and say, what's the venue and who's the.
Yeah, and
It was
you would send tapes through the mail,
yeah.
and like Couch tried that. We actually got a rejection letter from a club in Kalamazoo where I was born, saying we will never ever have this kind of music
Jeez.
in our town. You know, we kind of wore it as a badge of honor.
Yeah.
But so we toured out west, and oh yeah, and so basically when I did play out west, actually when we first went to Chicago with Couch, and I played for people I didn't know, and we kind of blew them away, and I discovered my true power as a singer on that night in Chicago. I think, you know, I realized that I actually had the ability of crowd control,
Yeah.
like where I could actually like sort of felt like I was harnessing the forces of nature in a way, and just sort of like, you know, could almost like, you know, like just command the audience and almost hypnotize people or something. And then in Lake of Dracula, I did the same thing, just kind of went crazy and just, you know, and I kind of like, you know, took it a little further, you know, was able to move more because I didn't have the heavy wood, you know, just got better at it, learned how to sing actually into a microphone instead of just like over the top of it, you know, and you know, because I used to sing like a newscaster, like just spitting. I would hold the microphone like a newscaster instead of singing into it. Like
It's
I learned where the transistor was, and
so you're growing as a person here once you went to Chicago, and did you also self-release your stuff, or did you get on other
well,
labels, or
I was gonna start because I had sunk some money into Bulb,
Mhm.
and Pete and I sort of had like a parting of ways, and Pete was gonna pay me back the money that I had sunk into Bulb, which took a little longer. So I thought I would get that money back quickly, which was delusional. um, and I was going to self-release the Lake of Dracula album. In fact, I even put an ad in, I think, Banana Fish magazine that it was going to be on a vanity label I had called Concrete Owl.
okay?
And then Skin Graft, Weasel knew because they were putting out Flying Lutenbachers.
Okay.
And Weasel said, "Hey, Skin Graft wants to put out a 7-inch. They want to put out a Lake of Dracula 7-inch." And I was like, well, I kind of wanted to release that as an LP on my own label, but I don't want to do a 7-inch. But if they want to do an LP, let's talk. And so they said, okay, well, we could consider doing an LP. Like I didn't want to do a 7-inch because when I was doing Bulb, we just put out way too many 7-inches, and it was just too much work. Like I was like, got to do full-length albums, you know. And so I wanted to do an album, and plus we had a lot of songs. We had, you know, and so then we did an album for Skin Graft. We were kind of like a hot label at the time.
Yeah, really.
And we, and it was wild. We had.
Did you get like $100,000 advance or what?
Yeah, we had. I think we were given an advance to like record in a studio. Maybe I don't remember. Weasel handled all the business.
So you went to a real studio, and did you work with the person who recorded you? Was it like some dude you knew, or like
well, first we recorded with Jim O'Rourke, who's like, you know, has a big name in the experimental music world. And he played with Sonic Youth, and you know, he's
thrill jockey,
a titan.
Yeah.
You know, he's a force. You know, and he really liked us. He was a fan. He was a big fan. In fact, one time when I got mono, and couldn't sing for Lake of Dracula, and Weasel's like, we can't cancel the show, it's already booked. And I'm like, but I have mono, I can't sing. And he's like, well, we got to do the show. And I was like, well, Jim looks enough like me, he's got dark hair and glasses, why doesn't he just fill in for me? So I had Jim fill in for us. And so he took over my role as I recuperated from mono, you know, for that one show, figuring that like, nobody will know the difference, it's a guy with horn-rimmed glasses and dark hair. So he wanted to record us, so we did recording at Soma Studios, which is Tortoise's studio, when they were out of town. And Jim was like, I think I can record it for free. Like you guys can just, they're out of town, and they said I could use the studio, so I'll just do it for free. And we're like, wow. Yeah. And we did it. And then I got a rough mix when we got home, and I'm like, oh man, this is amazing. This sounds great. And then Weasel the next morning, this is terrible. We got to re-record this. And I was like, I thought it sounded great. Yeah. He said, no, it sounds terrible. We have to re-record it. And I was like, oh man, I poured my heart into that. Okay. guess we'll re-record it.
Yeah.
And so we then re-recorded it at another studio with Jim also engineering. And then when it came time to mix it, Jim and Weasel kind of had a battle of wills because Jim was like mic placement and Weasel was like EQing, and they're like mic placement, EQing, mic placement, EQing, and they went back and forth. And so Jim recorded it, and then when it came time to mix it, Weasel was just kind of like, "All right, thanks, I'm gonna mix this now."
Yeah,
And kind of,
jeez.
and then Jim just said, "I kind of feel sick. I'm gonna go." And
He got mono.
he got mono, and Weasel replaced him on the board, and and so then Weasel mixed the album.
Is that good?
He did a good job.
Yeah.
He did a good job. And we also had a backup singer called the Manhattanite, which, was Al from U.S. Maple. He did a fine, like, I had a dream one night that, like, I was like, hey, I had this dream that we had Al sing backup for us on a song. And Weasel said, why don't we have him sing backup on all the songs? And I was like, all right. And then it kind of became like a thing. And because I was the singer, I was like, well, okay, we got a backup singer now. Like, I don't know, And I was kind of like, I guess I felt like my ego was like it was encroaching on my singer territory, And it was fun for a few gigs, but I kind of personally felt a little bit
Threatened.
a little threatened, a little irritated because I thought it was kind of silly and like, I mean, it was cool, but every time we'd play a bad show, Weasel would be like, "Oh, it was because the Manhattanite wasn't here. That it was a bad show," and I was just like, kind of like,
Yeah.
"Fuck this Manhattanite shit,"
Yeah.
in my mind,
Wasn't funny.
Yeah, it kind of irritated me. No fault of Al's, who did an admirable performance, and I mean, it did make some fun chaotic shows, but after a while, I became like irritated and potentially threatened by the Manhattanite.
So the band broke up.
The band broke up when Heather quit.
Okay.
Heather quit to go to school.
Because
Well, actually, I'm not sure why she quit, but she did quit and she did go to school.
so it's a good time. That for her.
For her, yeah.
Good timing.
She quit and kind of disappeared, and then I decided, like, I was working for Borders, and I decided, like, I became like, I started like going up the ladder a little bit, the corporate ladder just a little bit, and I'm like, I'm turning 30. I should give up this stupid music dream and get serious about a career. And that lasted about a year. When I decided, like, I was living in Chicago with my then girlfriend, who later became my wife, who I'm no longer with. We're still friends and have a daughter together, but
I broke her futon.
you broke her futon and incurred her wrath when we came back with that giant rat bong.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. To tell her.
She knows.
Yeah.
She knows.
Yeah. Broke the futon. We were sent out to repair it.
Sorry. Okay. Don't worry about that part.
Yeah. So we were living on Fullerton, which is a street in Chicago, and I just heard these cars going like in a kind of like just like bass, like bass, like nuts and bolts rattling in the trunks, and I'm like, man, this is fucking cool. Like, I wonder how I could make music that sounded like this, like I need a bass player, like I need 2 bass players, like how do I do this, and then Jessica, my friend Jessica, who played bass in Like a Dracula later on, she was like, oh, that's synthetic bass. And I was like, oh, synthetic bass, like how what do you, like, how do you do synthetic bass? And I started, like, the internet was brand new. I discovered the internet, and I was like looking for, like, how do I do synthetic bass, and then I started looking at, like, oh, drum machines, like, and I saw that Quintron and Andrew WK and Wolf Eyes, who was like Aaron Dillaway, who's like, I was friends with all those guys, and I'm like, you guys are using drum machines, like how do drum machines work? Like, how do you do this? Like, how do you even do this? And they're like, oh, we use like Zoom drum machines and this and that. And I started like looking this up and researching stuff on the internet, and then I decided I was going to get an MC505 groove box.
Okay.
and that's how I was gonna make music that sounded like that.
Like some car bass.
Yeah, like some car bass. And then I was like, well, since I'm gonna do electronic music now, maybe I should go listen to some of this stupid shit that
Yeah.
some of this stupid glow stick music, so I could just listen to the mechanics of it, like how it's done and everything.
Mm.
And then I was like, oh wait, this is actually really cool.
Yeah.
Oh shit, this is cool too. Oh, this is cool too. Oh man, this is amazing, and this is amazing. And I'm like, this isn't bad music. This is great music. In fact,
So what were some of these things that opened your eyes? Do you remember?
yeah, it was like Thomas Brinkman,
Okay.
and some of the early Profan records were like Wolfgang Vogt, like Mike Inc., and some of the like early Profan records. And then Kevin Drum told me about like Robert Hood, and I was like, I listened to like Robert Hood, and then I was listening to some Jeff Mills, and some records on Cheap, and then
So this is now late 90s.
late 90s,
It's
yeah.
97, 98.
Yeah, so I had the means to start making electronic music, and then I was starting to listen to electronic music. I'm like, oh man, this doesn't suck. This is all, I like this stuff better than I liked all the rock music.
But
like,
you never had like there's like a crossover with bands like, Throbbing Gristle or Cabaret Voltaire and stuff like that. That never crossed your radar.
I was never listening to those bands,
No.
really.
Hmm.
Like I remember even somebody wrote about me in like the Village Voice or something like that, or maybe New York Rock. I don't know. This guy Chuck Eddy, he said like there's a picture of me on a white chair in a black turtleneck, just taking a stupid picture, a promo picture, and not stupid.
Yeah.
Sorry, but and they said, oh, here's this guy who looks like he's sitting on a toilet, making this like, and somebody described it as garbage tronica,
Yeah.
and so he said, if this is gonna usher in the Throbbing Gristle revival, count me out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who is this? Like, oh, Throbbing Gristle, that was the band that I saw in that Button magazine all those years ago. Like, I never even listened to Throbbing Gristle.
Yeah. I mean, the records didn't come here. They were harder to get, I guess. They were public.
Yeah, I just wasn't listening to them, and so I started getting into all these, and then I started going to Gramophone all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and listening to music on the headphones, and be like, oh, this is cool, and it was like a lot of the stuff from Cologne I thought was cool because it was just weird, and it was weirder than some of the rock music that I was listening to.
But was when you went at it, were you like, oh, this is dance music, or was it's because it's kind of also the tail end of like IDM, kind of, like these like
Well, I was kinda
Tarokoko
curious
Rot and stuff like that. Like, did you group it in with stuff like that? Like even Tortoise even had like a.
I wasn't
sort
into
of
all that stuff.
It was
yet.
just a different angle
to
altogether.
me, it was just like this. I think the stuff that I was mainly listening to and responding to was like mostly like 4/4 stuff. Like some of the stuff on Profan was pretty pretty 4/4. Thomas Brinkman was kind of wobbly,
as straight as you can get.
Yeah, like the Studio One kind of Studio Eins kind of stuff. The Studio Eins variations. It was kind of like 4/4, and so I was kind of. And since I was never a very and Couch was kind of 4/4, and so I kind of like really responded to the 4/4 stuff because I didn't really understand drumming and math and even how to go beyond a 4/4, honestly. And plus, 4/4 just sounded good. It was like throbbing, and it sounded like those cars that were driving by, and it sounded like Couch, and it sounded like
you can tap your foot to it.
You can tap your foot to it, and it just had this like throb, and it just sounded like when you just hear it at like deafening volumes, it just sounded like kind of like beyond punk to me in a way, because punk just sounded like ching-a-ding-a-ding, anarchy in the UK, ching-a-ling-a-ling, and it just sounded like normal band music, and this was just like doon 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 doon, and it sounded like it had more in common with the noise music that I initially thought was blowing my mind. So my mind was being blown all over again by I didn't think of it as really dance music. I thought of it as almost like a new kind of like avant-garde sort of punk in a way. Yeah,
I mean, at a certain point, punk becomes very tiring. I don't know why. It's like, I don't know if it's for me at least, you just kind of get tired of it. You like heard it, and kind of nothing more has really happened with punk.
Yeah, it didn't sound. And with electronic music, you would just hear this weird shit like that doesn't sound like anything I've heard before.
Yeah.
It wasn't even experimental electronic music, which I liked, like Stockhausen and Xenakis and all that kind of stuff. But but it was kind of almost like kind of a new type of tyranny.
Yeah.
Like it was almost kind of like the new bully in town that was gonna like bulldoze its way into the room and just thung, gung, 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 and just like it sounded like.
But isn't that, it's a weird thing that how that German stuff was so popular in the U.S. at that time, or I mean not popular, but like how it had it really reached in. I mean, it was available. Like you could buy that stuff.
Yeah, it was going to Gramophone and just going to Gramophone, and also there was a store called Quaker Goes Deaf, where there was a guy by the name of Ray Rodriguez who would go in and let me listen to stuff, and say, hey, you want to listen to this on the headphones? And there were things that I experimented with some other kind of stuff, like stuff on like Worm Interface, and just kind of like it was just some kind of weird. I experimented with a bunch of different things, but the things I responded to the most were like the stuff on like Profan and Freiland and some of the Wolfgang Folk kind of stuff. But then I also discovered when I went on my first Magas tour on the East Coast, and Bridget and I went on that, and then I started discovering my friend Lindsay, aka Vicky, who she's still around. She turned me on to. She gave me an Ersatz audio compilation, and I listened to that, and I heard this kind of like, oh, this is cool. It sounds like cheap and weird. It sounds like old, like it sounds like '80s stuff, but it sounds kind of new and fresh and kind of cheeky and stuff like that. And then I heard like Doppler. She gave me a Doppler effect CD too, and I'm like, oh, this is weird. It's like, what the fuck is this? It's this sounds punk too, because it's almost like kind of like sneering, cheeky, like robot music that's kind of like it's kind of like a new kind of punk, and then GD Lux and like all this kind of, and Chicks on Speed, and then I discovered somebody said, oh, have you heard Peaches? She's got a groove box too, and I set up a show for her in Chicago. I wrote to Peaches and I'm like, hey, I love this demo CD. Do you want to come to Chicago and play some shows? And she said, okay, and we played together in Chicago, Detroit. So I actually set up her first 2 shows in the U.S., just wrote to her, and she came out and we played. And so to me it seemed like there was this almost kind of like this new kind of punk that was happening, but it was people doing it with electronic instruments. And to me that sounded more fresh and more weird than people doing it with guitars. Yeah. Because guitars just sounded like trebly and unpleasant to the ear.
And so, did this make you want to quit the band, or
quit what band?
Lake of Dracula.
That was already broke. That broke up.
Done.
Yeah, that was. Were you listening?
No, I said you said you went on. All of a sudden, you were on a Magas tour with Bridget on the East Coast.
Yeah.
I missed the Lake of Dracula.
No, Lake of Dracula. I remember I told. You're not listening, man. You're. No, I'm teasing, man. I'm giving you a hard time. Lake of Dracula broke up in '97. Heather quit.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Heather quit, right. And then I decided I was going to get serious about a career. And then
okay, I got a little lost.
I'm messing with you. I've been saying a lot of things.
No, it's okay.
There's a lot of talking happening.
I got
here.
A little lost.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm messing with you, but they.
Sometimes I need a recap, you know.
yeah. For late. So anyway, we.
So Lake of Dracula, the girl went to college.
Yeah.
Heather.
Yeah. She split.
And you're still in Chicago, and you were serious, and you met Bridget before you got serious.
I met Bridget before. I met Bridget shortly after Lake of Dracula started.
So you were together before you became serious about your job. You didn't like meet her during that period and like fake her out or something. No.
Well, I think I did. I think she was pleased that I was getting serious about a career.
Yeah, I could see
maybe
that.
Not as pleased that I was. I mean, she liked that I was into music, but eventually I think got tired of, like a lot of people,
it's understandable.
Dating someone who is like
traveling,
or just doing music and it's not paying off it's not paying the bills, can be a little tiring, I suppose.
So,
the difference between a pizza and a musician.
No.
A pizza can feed a family of 4.
Jeez.
Woo. Thanks, Leah. Thanks, Laraji, for that
one. you skipped the part. You're on your first East Coast Magus tour.
Yes.
How did you get there? Like what you
How
heard?
did I
You
set
heard?
that up?
No, you heard this synthetic music,
Right.
and you got an MC 303 505,
505.
and you went on tour.
I started playing. Learned how to
This
use
is where
that
I got
thing.
lost.
I learned how to use that thing. I pressed my first record, double-sided Magus.
Okay.
Released it myself on my own vanity label, Danger de Nuit, like Danger of the Night, French
Okay.
for Danger of the Night.
So this is now 1998 or
99.
99. Okay.
No, 99 is when I got the 505, and then I pressed the record in 2000,
Mhm.
did it myself, and somebody said, "Hey, do you want to have it mastered?" And I'm like, "Well, that sounds like a rip-off.
Yeah.
What's mastering? Like somebody's
Yeah.
just going to help make it better?
Yeah.
Sounds good as it is." And then I got it, and it was like too quiet, and it had so much bass, the
Yeah.
needle vibrated out of the groove, and I'm like, "Oh, maybe I should have
Yeah,
got this mastered." So that was a early expensive lesson in mastering.
Yeah.
Like I needed to master the thing.
A little "I told you so" moment from the
Yeah,
pressing
like
plant.
okay, maybe there was something to this mastering. And then I did that East Coast tour by myself, and
Mhm.
that was kind of affirming because I was able to like rock some crowds with that.
So how did that come about though? You put this. This is pretty early internet, I guess, and so you put this record out, and then whatever the like record stores that bought it, you talked to those people, or you had friends, or how did you go on this?
Well, at the same time, Bridget and I decided to open our own store.
Okay, so you started Weekend Records and Soap.
Yep.
Was that was after your year of seriousness, or during, or how did this idea come about?
That was after the year of seriousness. I started doing electronic music. Getting into electronic music, like whole hog, jump both feet in. I was like, oh my god! Like it was kind of like when you discover a good TV show after it's over, you can go backward and binge on all of it. It was kind of like, there was all of the prior electronic music, and like, oh my god, there's all this amazing techno going back to the early 90s and even late 80s for some, and like proto techno and all this kind of, like, I just, like, it all, like, all of dance music's history started unfolding.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my god, this, like, I have to tell everybody else that this stuff doesn't suck.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, suddenly became okay.
Yeah, for me.
Yeah.
Like all my friends were like, what the hell is he? Why is he into this shit? Like,
Yeah.
why does he? You're into like this DJ glow stick shit now, and like nobody really understood my old friends,
But I mean, I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize now is that if you're from middle America, generally dance music was in the 90s was thought of as that's where you go to take drugs and wear big pants and have candy raver stuff. Maybe mostly like you always thought it was jungle for some reason.
Yeah,
I always did.
Jungle did make like there was a jungle night,
Like happy hardcore and stuff like that.
There was a jungle night in Chicago. Like somebody said, oh, you got to come to the jungle night. And I went one time, and I was like, everybody was going to it, and I was kind of like, it was like, and I was just kind of like, this isn't really my scene. I was curious and sort of interested, but it just wasn't my thing. So that was in the mid '90s, and that's sort of like what made me think like, this is kind of more interesting than what I thought. Like, everybody dance now,
Yeah.
dun, like, but it still was not like my thing.
Yeah.
So I still kind of had like somewhat of an aversion to electronic music until discovering all the, mainly I would say the weird shit from Cologne was what kind of was my gateway.
And then, so you decide to start a store.
Yeah, we decided to start a store. Well, basically, I always wanted to have a record store, and I kind of had a dream to start a record store, but I thought it would take like $50,000 because that's what somebody said. You need $50,000, and looking back, probably should have had $50,000, but I had $5,000, a little at a time, and well, basically. I said, I want to have a record store. And Bridget said, well, I want to have a soap store. So we're like, well, why don't we have a record and soap store? There's no law against mixing
No, no.
And so she found a location. I was like, but we don't have $50,000. She's like, well, I'm going to get this space. Are you in or not?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And we went and looked at the space, and then the rent was cheap, and there were a bunch of people looking around at the space, and we're like, oh man, this was like teeming with people that were interested in it, and it was on Division Street in Chicago, which was still a bit wild, still not really like there weren't a bunch of. I mean, now it's just that street's insane, but it was still kind of wild, and we just walked in and we're like, we'll take it.
Yeah.
And didn't ask any questions because there were guys like asking questions about if you could do this or that, and I'm just like, we'll take it. And we didn't have any money. We left and we're like, how are we gonna get the money for the security deposit? How are we gonna like we don't have any money? Like what the hell?
Yeah.
Like we just and we got the space. And years later, I asked my landlord, like, with all those people, why did you give it to us? He said, you didn't ask any questions.
Yeah. It's best.
So we ended up like Bridget's dad gave her the money for the security deposit, and we started the space, and we just started a little at a time, with like a tiny amount of inventory, and we sold it, and we're like, oh my God, we sold everything, we got to get more, and we ordered more, and we sold that, and ordered more, and sold that, and just kept slowly building it up.
So, I mean, is this? It might be a rude question, but rent is now, is it like $1,000 or?
Oh, it's more than that.
$2,000.
It's like I don't even know what it is. Like
no. When you had the place.
Oh, it was like probably like less than 1,000. It was probably like, I think it was like maybe $850 a month or something.
So it's at a price like that. It's possible. You can see how you could actually make money as being a record store.
Well, yeah. So what we did is it was zoned as a mixed-use space.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, well, we could live in the back of it. We could give up our nice apartment in Logan Square, which we did, and live in the back of the store. So we lived in the back of it, and we saved money that way, and the rent was cheap. And what was your question again?
No, I just seemed like whenever you start a store now, it's so expensive, the rent.
Oh yeah,
it's impossible. All your money that you make just goes straight to rent.
So the rent was crazy. But then we also worked during the week. I was working at Borders, and I was in loss prevention security.
Okay.
And on the weekends, I checked to make sure it wasn't going to be a conflict of interest. Checked with corporate HQ, and I would like work during the week. And then on the weekend, we would open the store. That had the fact that we were open on the weekend didn't have anything to do with the name. We named it after the Godard film.
Okay, yeah.
We started, we'd do it, and we would sell stuff, and we'd be like, wow, we made like almost $1,000 on this one Saturday. Like, what if we just did this 7 days a week? Like, maybe it's time to... Maybe and Bridget was working a day job.
Mm-hmm.
She had a pretty good like web job, and I had a pretty good job, and I ended up being the first one to quit my day job because I knew about the records, and she was doing the soap. She could make the soap on the weekend, but
she had a better job probably anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We both had pretty decent jobs at the time. Like I mean. It wasn't a lot of money by today's standards. It wasn't even a lot of money by those standards, but it was still the most amount of money that I'd ever made in my life.
That's weird about the 90s, huh?
Yeah, and probably was the highest paying job that I still, still was the best paying job that I ever had. But I did that, and then I decided to, do it 7 days a week or six days a week. Mm-hmm. We would close one day, and then we're like, okay, we gotta. Yeah. I would be back there. We'd hang a curtain up over the window, and then like on the day that we would close, Monday, I would hear people through the glass go, "Oh shit, they're closed!
Yeah.
Oh shit, they're closed! Oh damn it, they're closed!" And I'm like, okay, we gotta open up 7 days because I'm tired of hearing people disappointed that we're closed because. We would have pretty good hours. I hated those stores that kept irregular hours. You would go there and they'd be closed. My thing was like, I want to have broad hours and consistent hours and be available all the time. We did that, and then when we would close at night, we would hang these black plastic curtains up over the window, and then we would, party with our friends in the store,
Yeah.
and just hang out with people, like sometimes preferred customers or friends, and it was kind of like having an always clean living room with like great records and big speakers. So,
That's cool.
yeah, it was fun.
I mean, this is the time period, maybe a little bit into this, where I met you, and I through you, I was touring with the bunker guys, the real bunker from the Netherlands, and I met Bo Wanzer through you, and I met Melvin Trax through you.
Yeah.
How did you meet those? I mean, do you keep crossing paths with people that are still involved in the music industry now, and these are people that I'm pretty close with now still. So it's like this is where I start to know you, and I know the history. So maybe I'll have a little more input. But what? So this is these are or I guess is Bo a dance music guy? He's like a goth kid.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Bo's kind of a goth
Melvin
kid
is
like Bo is like kind of like
Bo Wanzer.
Yeah. Bo Wanzer was a younger guy who was coming to the store
From Oklahoma.
And he started coming around, and he had this girl. He would come in with his girlfriend. I wasn't sure if they're I didn't know if they were girlfriend or boyfriend,
Yeah.
but I wanted to hire her because it's always good to have a cute girl working in your store.
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, you should hire my friend Bo." And I was like, maybe you should work here, and
Yeah.
and then she said, "I'll hire my friend Bo." And
Yeah.
so we hired Bo.
Yeah.
I interviewed Bo,
Yeah.
and Bo started working there.
And
And and then so Bo was just barely 21,
Yeah.
and he started working there. And then we just started to once we were open, we started attracting people. We had a pretty good grand opening party, because I knew Peaches, so I had her do an in store, and I knew Brendan Gillen from Michigan.
This is Ectomorph.
Yeah, Ectomorph, and he does he one half of Ectomorph and one half of Interdimensional Transmissions. So he and I, and he was crucial in turning me on to a few things too, because he turned me on to IF, around the year 2000.
Well, because he put out a version of Space Invaders.
Yeah, the
Smoking
Man
Grass.
from Pack. Yeah,
Oh, Man from Pack.
And the Space Invaders are Smoking Grass 12-inch, and also one of the one of the big things for me that blew my mind was, and also Brendan showed me all his gear, which blew my mind.
Yeah.
Because I had the MC505 Groove Box, and then Brendan showed me the 303 and the 808 and all this stuff, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And but I'm like, but I can't afford any of this stuff, so never mind. And then I got into IF's Mixed Up in The Hague, and that kind of showed me, okay, so there was this stuff like Adult, there was the stuff from. There was the stuff from Germany, the weird shit from Germany, and then there was the early stuff from Detroit I knew about, and then I started to learn about the weird stuff like Adult and Doppler effect and all that, and the kind of sort of punk, almost like Gary Newman-esque or John Fox-esque sort of stuff, and then I started learning about the Dutch stuff, because I learned, I heard Mixed Up in The Hague, and that blew my mind.
Yeah.
And then I learned about Alden Tyrell and all that, and I started learning about the Dutch stuff, and I'm like, okay, so there's this other whole pocket of weird shit from the Netherlands, and I started discovered Lego Welt, and IF and Rude 66 and Unit Mobius and all this kind of stuff, and then that was another wormhole that I, it was so much fun because there were all these new worlds that I was discovering.
Yeah. And the other thing, but at that time, it's pretty early web, and they had a website called Global Darkness, and on that website, it would be if you Googled, Bobby Orlando, or Giorgio Moroder or something like that, you would end up on their website, and
right?
They would have bios about them. And
Yeah, I don't even remember how I ended up on that website.
yeah, you were probably like looking up like some, something like Giorgio Moroder or who knows what you, or if you like search Italo, it's like the only place.
Or maybe IF, or
Yeah, or
Mixed Up in the Hague,
whatever,
or any of
yeah.
those kind of things. And so, yeah, there was this great message board,
Yeah.
and called Global Darkness, and they had like various things like, you know, where we talk about music, or there was a gear section where if you had questions about gear, you just bought a new piece of gear, like, and these were like analog synths. Everybody were like analog synth heads,
Yeah.
and I made the transition to analog synth when I went to, well, when I went to, I played a show in Detroit with Peaches, and an adult came to my show, and I'd gotten to know them for ordering Ursat's audio stuff for Weekend, and they came to my show, and they liked it. They liked the punk in it because I started singing, and I kind of like sort of like took some of the energy that I had from Lake of Dracula and Couch, and started doing that electronically. I think I was emboldened by bands like Adult and like Doppler Effect and John Fox and
Yeah.
Fad Gadget and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like, oh, you can do vocals with this kind of stuff. So I started singing, and those guys were like, "Whoa, this is great shit. Do you want to put out a record on our label?" And I said, "Wow, I would love to. I would be honored." And they said, "Now, I hope you don't take offense to this, but would you be willing to let us co-produce, because we like what you're doing with the MC505 Groovebox, but we're an analog.
Yeah.
We do analog synth stuff, and we would like to transpose your parts to analog synth." And I was like, oh yeah, I would love it. Like,
Yeah, sure, let's go.
I'd be honored. Yeah, let's do this. And so I went to their studio, and I'm like, and I hear a real 808, and I'm like, oh, this is why my stuff sounded so weak, because I didn't have an 808. And
Yeah.
then I hear the ARP, and I'm like, oh man, and I started hearing all this stuff, and I'm like, oh man, this is why all this stuff sounds so, like, why all these old records sound so powerful and mine sound like kind of weak and puny, because I don't have this stuff, but I still can't afford it, so never mind. And then somebody said, hey, do you want to buy this Juno 106? And I was like, okay. And then I was like, man, I need an 808. And some guy at Weekend turned around and goes, I got an 808 that you'll sell? Sure. Yeah, how much? Oh, $600.
Yeah.
And again, it was like, how am I gonna get? I don't have $600.
Yeah.
But I found it somehow, and just got the 808, and then I had a Juno, and then I just started basically starting to collect stuff. So then I discovered the Global Darkness. Then I started using the analog stuff myself, and
then you have questions about it.
you had questions about it, and you would ask people on the Global Darkness site, like, how do I convert, how do I control my 808 with MIDI? It's not MIDI, it's sync. So how do I need? Oh, okay, you need a MIDI to sync converter, and I just you would just go on the internet and look up stuff and ask questions, and also we would bitch about electroclash, because this movement that I was talking about, where there were these kind of synth bands with vocals, like punk vocals. I thought this was a really kind of exciting thing. It was like electro punk and electronic punk. It was like this new thing springing up, and then somebody said, oh yeah, that's called electroclash, and I own it, and I'm going to trademark it, and it's going to be, but I'm going to put this kind of cheesy 80s spin on it, and this is, and then I was kind of like, but that was already happening, and it wasn't called anything.
Yeah, I just accepted the.
You went electroclash?
No, I didn't. I didn't go, but it's the best word to use now. I wouldn't say it before in my past life. It was like a no word.
Yeah. We all would. Yeah, nobody would. I was invited to play the electroclash.
Yeah.
An electroclash show, and I turned it down because I said I would love to play with Peaches and Chicks on Speed, but I won't play anything called electroclash. So regrettably, I must decline.
I don't know. Can't explain it really. Whatever it was. Once you put a label on stuff, it's kind of whack or something.
Yeah, but also there was kind of a sort of like they were like you know, people were lip syncing and having guitars that they weren't playing, and that seemed a little silly.
Yeah, I mean, it got a little.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But that's okay. You know, at the time we were mad about it. Now it seems a little silly.
I had a weird. I think when I got over it is when I taught swimming to the guy who made Fisher Spooner's music. He was like, his kids were in my swimming class, and I like had known him and his kids for like.
A Fisher Spooner I like though.
Yeah, but I mean,
I liked their.
Yeah, but I feel like they're like the pinnacle of electroclash.
Yeah.
For me, they're like that explains.
I mean, it kind of got to be a little bit overkill when they came out with their 8th remix of that song "Emerge" or whatever. But I did kind of like Fisher Spooner.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
They were actually, they had you know, some good hooks, and
it was great, you know. But after I met the guy, and after like really realizing that this is like a nice man who just was just doing some shit, and we didn't know him when he was doing it. Like it like kind of opened my eyes that like.
And I played with DJ Unknown, their DJ, down south, and he was really cool.
Nice guy.
Yeah, nice guy.
Yeah.
And I actually felt kind of bad because like one time Larry T came into Weekend.
Yeah.
And there was a magazine called Sleaze Nation.
Yeah.
And it said, there was a review that said, Magas is out to destroy Electroclash, whatever that is. And I was like, hey man, check this out. And he's like, oh man, I'm not trying to I'm not trying to, you know, do anything. This is just the name of a festival. And I was like, well, why did you trademark it then? And he's like, and he was very nice. He was super nice and apologetic, and I felt a little bad for being such a dick, but I felt like I had my standards and had to, you know.
I don't know. I think that, and also too, now that I've, you know, you really see Larry T is pretty deep into dance music, and he's been around.
He's been around forever.
Time,
yeah, he has. Yeah. Where is he now?
I have no idea. But he he's done a lot of stuff.
He did pay his dues, and he was involved in like the early conception of the B-52s. He was part of the
RuPaul, you know.
Yeah, RuPaul. So,
and
Larry.
If
you're listening, I'm ready to go Electroclash now.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're sorry.
He's always. I think he's probably a very nice man, and he's done a lot for dance music, you know. Whatever.
It's at the time, you know, we had our thing. You know, I mean, like, I feel like through a lot of my music, it was always going against whatever was in fashion at the time, and that was what was in fashion at the time, and I was being sort of reactionary. And I still, to this day, I feel like I'm a bit like that. I mean, like punk. Now there's this kind of like, sort of like dark wave kind of stuff, and everybody's wearing black, making really mean beats, and I wear pink. So
I don't know what's the thing about now is that I don't know what the hell's going on, man. And I don't know if anybody does. It seems so, it's like there's not like a strong standouts. You know what I mean?
No, I have to. I'd be the first to admit that I'm very confused by like Bandcamp and what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's like I just don't know. Like
there's so much
vaporwave and just like
there's kind of like a jungle thing going on now, or not breakbeat techno kind of trance even kind of, but
interesting.
And fast is also popular, like 140 BPM.
You know, I did kind of. That's fast to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's not
like when I used to do like 165 kind of stuff, and people would say this is too fast, man. Like you can't
DJ with this.
But
I don't know what's popular now. I don't know what I felt like.
But there was sort of a jungle resurgence, like as filtered through like bands like Demdike Stare. And I heard it, and I'm like, you know, this is kind of cool. Maybe jungle wasn't so bad. It's still like some, like but their stuff is all weird and like it's kind of a fucked up version of it. So it was kind of like it didn't, you know. But
the one I've gone back to is that I realize is cool is Photech. There's like a few drum and bass people that it's like futuristic, and a guy called Gerald also has some pretty cool stuff.
Drum and bass.
Yeah. He had like a label called Juicebox, and it had like good drum and bass on it. But there's a couple things I try. It gets really repetitive.
Yeah.
But it's the same as anything. You really have to like put your time. I couldn't hear a whole night of it, and then
when we had Weekend, there was a guy that said like, "Hey man, can you carry drum and bass in the store?" And I was like, "No."
Yeah, you're just like, I don't fucking know what to do. You know.
Yeah.
It was I don't know. It's another one of those. I don't know that much about it.
Yeah, I didn't know about it, and he said, "I'll just tell you what to get," and I was just like, "Yeah,
Why don't you just order it somewhere else then?
yeah, yeah." So
And then, but so your record store, this was kind of at a weird time to open a store because, at the same time, Napster and all this, the death of vinyl and 9/11 and like all this stuff is
all
happening
that stuff
at the same
happened,
time,
yeah.
like which is difficult for record stores. It was like because now all of a sudden, any kid with a computer can have any music they want. They wait. Maybe sometimes you got to wait 24 hours to download the song or whatever, but you could have everything on your hard drive, and people stopped buying records.
Well, they were buying them in our store. Oh yeah, but I did want to also say I did discover that house was cool. Like once
Yeah.
I started like just to go back and say that like it wasn't like everybody dance now.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah.
you start hearing some of the
Too
weird
far gone.
yeah,
Yeah.
we hear some of the weird track
Yeah.
shit and like
Yeah.
I've lost control.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like it's not.
Yeah.
It was just like weird primitive music and fucked up and just like there was yet another undiscovered world and kind of went crazy down that rabbit hole too. Like when you discover that dance music doesn't suck and then you can work backwards, there's
Yeah.
like an endless world of things to
And
discover.
you realize that it's also like just some DIY kid in his mother's
Yeah.
basement.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of this stuff got sort of like especially in Chicago just sort of got commercialized and went above ground and
Yeah.
co-opted and stuff like that. But I was sort of enthused by like I felt like house kind of moved to Detroit in a way, like people like Omar S and Theo Parrish and sort of stuff
Mhm.
were like still doing like weird like fucked up experimental stuff that like was happening in Chicago early on, but then just sort of like got like watered
Yeah.
down and commercialized.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like a lot of house from Detroit was still kind of keeping the spirit that was alive in Chicago.
I mean that's like a subject that you could probably like say the wrong thing real quick. Is Chicago house. I don't know what happened in the 90s, but not I can't think of much, or I'm sure there's cool stuff, but it went a different direction. I don't know if it like because it like went to the UK and then like money got involved, if it got weird or
Usually money ruins everything.
Yeah, so I don't know. Is it just a so you and that I mean that's another thing is that another character that we have in our life is Melvin Oliphant Trax.
Yeah.
He came in your store and you met him that way, or
Yeah, he came into Weekend.
Because that's how I met him, and
He
through
came
you.
into Weekend and he came in one day when I wasn't there, when my friend Jack was working. And like, oh man, you got to meet this guy. He came in the other day, Trax, and da 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 da. And he was just like this, guy with like a lot of energy, and
Yeah.
and he was, and I was like, okay. And then he came in another time when I was working, and I just really loved Melvin. Got to know him, because he just had like so much like creative, wild energy, and really enthusiastic about music. And then shortly after meeting him, I saw him play, and I'm like, oh my god, he's such a great DJ, because his playing really transcended what he was playing. Like he just like took, like it was almost like he was just like painting with sound. He could take stuff from any genre, and and even like one time, like he was at the Fireside Bowl, and I was like, oh man, like because he like I used to like to set up shows at the punk rock bowling alley. Like when I met you. Well, I met you when I played for Safety in Numbers, and these promoters in New York, and you picked me up from the airport, and that's how I met you. So then when you set up the show for the bunker guys like Lego Welt and Orange Sunshine.
Yeah.
And that was kind of funny too. Just as a side note, was kind of funny too, because Orange Sunshine were a heavy psychedelic rock band, and then like all the techno people were like, "Why is this rock band playing with like Lego Welt?" And I thought it was amazing, because I just love fucking with people's mind. And
we all just thought it was okay.
It was okay. Like I thought it was great, because it was just like really fucking with the techno people. Like having this like heavy rock band play, and everyone's like, "Why?"
Yeah.
And we're like, "Because." because this guy was in Unit Mobius.
he
and
runs the label.
He runs the label, and this is how it is. And and I really kind of loved. I kind of loved like once I started like trying to get rock people into techno and everything like that. I saw that show as like kind of like a perfect thing to like here's
crossover.
heavy rock and weird
Yeah.
electronic music. And but getting back to Melvin, he was playing stuff like so he at the Fireside Bowl where I once set up I would like to set up shows for the Dutch guys because it was a great punk rock energy. It was like a dirty punk rock club, and they had a great PA. And then Melvin was DJing there one time, and like one time I'm like, wow, what is this? And I'm like, what is this? He's like, dude, Nirvana. And I was like, man, never did Nirvana sound so good to me as like when Melvin played it, because in the context, like he was just like he's for me just like, well, his energy is wild because his head is just like dong 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 dong, and and he's just like and he'll just like look at you, and he'll just like look at the audience and just start like seething like he's gonna fucking kick your ass, and then like boom drops the bass, and then he's like backspinning an empty slip mat, and just like it's like his energy is just like unbelievable, and it's so infectious, and he had this way of getting me pumped about music. Like he just had this way of getting me excited about music, and he was excited about music, and his energy was just really infectious. And so we became friends.
And that's why we need record stores.
Yeah, because you
meet people like
you
that.
meet people. I mean, other than being a place to buy records, because you got places online where you can do that, but record stores are where bands are formed. That's where alliances are formed. That's why we're sitting here now, because record stores are important, because like how are you going to do that online? How are you going to do that? Like maybe you'll go to a show.
There's different ways, but
there are different ways. But talking to someone in person, and going, oh man, that one record, that one part where the bass drops out and this happens, like that's something that you can't really talk about in writing. Maybe you could do it in a video chat, but it's just like there's
new ways, I'm sure.
A real-time brick-and-mortar energy that happens in a record store. Well, you can't really talk that much at shows because there's loud music.
Yeah, people.
But you'll be in a record store and you'll be like, oh, like for instance, I was in a record store and I'm like, I need an 808, and the guy's like, I got an 808, and like, would that happen on the street? No.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it boils down to is just community, and it was a good place for community, and hopefully, since there's less, record stores seem to be doing okay right now, but I don't know, I'm doubtful, but
I think they are. I mean, they open, they close. I mean, it's hard because
it's a different world.
Yeah, I admittedly stream stuff and don't really buy that many records anymore, because
so much.
I roll my own. I tend to buy more synth modules than records because, like,
that's what
teach a man, buy a man a fish he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish and he fishes. So I want to make music, so I generally spend my free income on things I can make music with.
I started buying a few records on Discogs, and I buy stuff for my friends on Bandcamp sometimes, like that.
Yeah.
If they put out a record, I'll just buy it or whatever. But I admittedly, I don't spend, but I also work at a record store, and I just take stuff home because I'm terrible. But
You're a thief?
I try not to be a dick about it, but it's bad. But
all these are
not all of them, but it's just that's how it goes.
Yeah. But
yeah, I don't. Old man complain. But so your record store was it was cool. Weekend Records and Soap. You did it with your wife Bridget, and at the time, and she sold soap, and
she made natural handmade soap. She had a record label, a soap label called Sparks, named after the band Sparks, but she changed, did the KS into an X, and she was really like one of the first in Chicago to have like soap.
Too early.
Soap on chopping blocks, which is now very commonplace. You go to every Whole Foods and there's like 5 different.
Yeah.
She had it and it was all natural, handmade. So she was really ahead of the curve on that. There was Lush, in like the UK and Canada and stuff like that. But she was really the first in Chicago before it became commonplace. So,
but so the store, you met a lot of people through because you would
good
have
smelling records.
Yeah, you would have good relationships because of the store. You met people from distributors, labels you would order from, and that would influence your tours and who came to town and booking shows, and you had this whole thing going, and that
there was a network. I met you that way. I made friends that way. I met a lot of people that way.
So what happened? It just didn't.
Well, that same momentum, because I said we started with like $5,000. Like I would get a paycheck and I would buy some records, and then another paycheck and I would use the free, and we would, when Bridget and I had a little extra money, we'd order some records, and then, like I said, we sold them all, and we ordered more, and sold them all, and ordered more. And that momentum built it up, like almost impossibly, like whoa, and then we moved out of the back. We started we need more room. We moved out of the back and we moved upstairs, and then because we didn't have money to get us through 6 months of bad business, which is what they say, we had enough money to get us through didn't even have enough money to get through 6 days worth of bad business. There was like a cold January that just kind of like that momentum started kind of like reversing on us. It wasn't so much that we got priced out or anything. I mean, that probably would have come later, but we were victims of our own undercapitalization. Mm-hmm. And also we were probably like a little sloppy with money, like going out and eating sandwiches at the restaurant, across the street instead of making peanut butter sandwiches at home or something,
That's not something you learn until you're like 40.
Right. So we, we would just like do paid outs and go get like, delicious sandwiches from across the street. And
you were living it up.
And ultimately, I think it was undercapitalization,
So, how long did it last?
We closed in spring of 2004.
Okay, so about 5 years, 6 years.
No, 3.5. Only 3.5.
Okay.
Like 2000 to 2004.
Okay.
Wait, 4 and no.
I don't know.
2000 to 2000, because we opened fall of 2000, and we closed in spring of 2004, and then dovetailing with the closing, I did my first European tour as Magas, and so I was kind of stressful. I was closing the store, moving apartments, and preparing for my first European tour.
Where you lost your sound card.
Yes. But was saved. Global darkness to the rescue. I lost my sound card, and I was like, I thought I was stranded in Europe and didn't know how I didn't have any money, and I didn't know how I was going to get to the next gig, and I didn't know how I was going to play the next gig, and then this guy shows up at the gig, and he's like, I'm Casson. I think I can help. And I was like, wait, Casson, the Casson from Global Darkness? And he's like, yes. And I'm like, I'll just go to my house and get my sound card, and I'll be back in a few minutes. And I'm like, oh, and then I was like, and by the way, Brian Chinetti, Org Electronic, said you can use his delay unit.
Yeah.
And, here you go. You're set for the tour. And I was like, oh, I'm back to life, and I can, I won't be stranded in Europe with no money. I can do the rest of my shows and get home.
Shout out to Casson.
Yeah, shout out to Casson. Shout out to Brian.
Casson. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it means it's like a weird name. It's like cheeser or like something.
Oh, really?
It's like a really weird name. It's like not a common name at all, because Koss is cheese, like Brogy Koss. But Casson, it's like I don't know. It's like every time he tells somebody his name, they're like, what?
Are you get?
I haven't seen. I saw him. I probably haven't.
You can respond in the comments.
I don't know. I wonder if he's still on the radar of this stuff. But I know
we talk on Facebook.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm not. Yeah, I haven't seen him. I would see him in person sometimes when I would travel, but it's probably been since 2016 or something since I've run into.
I saw him in 2005 when I went back.
Yeah. But it's been a while. He's still the same guy. But I appreciate him more now that I'm older. But when I was younger, he would get under my skin a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, but we also drove around in a car together for a long time.
Oh, that's right. You were on tour
yeah,
together.
We've done, just stuff.
You were tour managing.
Yeah,
a lot of like European bands. Like you asked me if I wanted to do a tour with Luke Eargoggle, the Swedish Luke Eargoggle.
And this also happened at the same. Was that before your European tour or not?
Yeah, before. So that happened in 2003, and so you and I toured together. You were tour managing and driving.
Yeah.
Not selling merch.
No.
We didn't have. I said, Will, we used to sell merch. No.
I would rather sleep in the car.
That's what you did. Yeah, Will refused to sell T-shirts. He went and slept in the car instead.
I was safety first, you know.
I didn't appreciate. At first I was like, why won't Will sell records? Why won't he do that? But you were safety minded.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Now all these years later, I come to appreciate your.
Too tired to drive, man.
Yeah.
I can't. 2003. I have no idea where we went. All I remember is there was one time where you drove onto the highway like the wrong way or something like that.
No.
You drove on the like exit.
I'm a Lyft driver. You can't say this on the air.
Oh, I'm sorry. But it was very momentary. It was like coming out of a rest stop, and it was like onto the highway, like on the exit into the, and I was like, no. And we're with Luke and Richard from Kintar Racing, and I just remember Luke like looking at me and doing his like, like his like Luke face. Yeah, but that was I can't even I don't know.
He was being blocky.
I mean I know we had the famous Manny Tellerama show in Pittsburgh with like 4 people.
Yeah, when we played at the Rex Theater.
Yeah, it was like Joanne and Kurt and like their girlfriends.
Yeah, and then we went out to eat after sound check, and we came back, and Manny was going, I don't know, and we're like, what do you mean you don't know? He's like, I don't know. Here's the articles. I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? He's like, I don't know. I'm thinking about canceling the show. I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, here's the ads in the paper, but there's only 8 people here.
Yeah.
And it was a big theater in Pittsburgh called the Rex Theater. Yeah. And there were like 8 people, and so we all had a little huddle. And Luke said, there's some people here that really like my stuff, and they have every release on Still Leben. And we said, all right, how about we ask him for half the guarantee, and we'll play. And he said, and so we asked him, and he said, okay. And then I remember playing on the stage, and there was like a hole in the stage. And there's a big piece of plywood that wasn't nailed down. So I was playing in an empty theater, and I put the piece of plywood up in front of me. So I was singing from behind a piece of plywood. So there was just like a piece of plywood on stage in an empty theater singing.
This is one of Lucas's favorite moments of all time, I think.
Yeah, and then he came up and rapped. He came up and rapped on one of my songs.
Oh, God.
I invited him up to the stage, and he came up and rapped on one of my songs.
And have you seen Lucas lately?
I have not.
I can't remember. He was here not too long ago. You guys need to rekindle.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
He's still fast and loose, man. He's still living life.
Great.
He'll come. I bet he'll be back soon. I was trying to get him to come again. I don't know what happened. This COVID. I guess COVID's over now. So I heard.
We'll see what kind of variant's next around the corner.
We don't know. I'm just not going to watch the news.
No, don't watch the news.
And see what my doctor says or something.
Yeah, but it's I mean, things are coming back to life now.
Yeah.
And
you're able to come and visit here.
Yeah. Here I am. My first trip. I went to my first concert the other night.
Did you fly?
I flew.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was my first post-COVID trip. And I went to my first concert the other night in over like a long time. I went to go see the Lydia Lunch Retrovirus, and it was like packed house. And I noticed like it was.
Was that like J.G. Thirlwell or plays with her? Or
no, it was my friend Weasel Walter played guitar with her, and she had a band, and so it was a packed show. First show, that I'd
Where
been.
was it?
It was at the place called TVI. And, in Brooklyn, it was TVI, and we're packed in, everybody's packed in, and all of a sudden I smell somebody farted.
Oh.
And every 5 minutes, and I'm like, welcome back to shows. Like,
should have worn my
America's
mask.
back. America's back.
Show
So you know,
farts.
here we are back. You know, now you have to smell other people's farts.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, I don't. I don't know. I just gonna carry on. You know, there's no.
You're gonna go smell those farts.
No, I'm not. I'm not gonna go anywhere.
You're gonna stay home.
Yeah.
Well, you're a new dad, so you
Yeah.
got no choice but to stay home.
No, but I'm enjoying it, staying home. So.
Oh yeah, I love staying home. I mean, like, certainly wouldn't want to wish a pandemic on anybody, but
It didn't really. Affect
I mean, for me, it was business as usual, and
Yeah.
somewhat of a. I wasn't going out that much anyway.
Are there
and,
less restaurants?
What's that?
Less restaurants.
I didn't go to restaurants. I didn't get a haircut. I didn't go to the movies. I didn't
Yeah.
go to shows. I didn't go to anything really. I went to work and I went home.
Yeah.
And but you know, during that time, it was kind of interesting. I did strike up a romance, you know,
Oh.
which is why I'm here now,
Ooh.
in New York, you know. So that was kind of cool. I mean, it was very cool.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And so, we've been talking for a while now, and well, let's start. What's going on? So your James Marlon Magas is new album, 12-inch. Is it going to
It's
be
gonna
on?
be an album.
Is it still Midwich
Yeah,
or
it's gonna be on Midwich.
and is
Well,
there
somebody can make a counter offer, but it's planned. You know, should be on Midwich.
is it are you still making records?
Yeah.
Press
Well,
records. I don't know. What
It's been a little inactive
yeah.
for some time because you know,
Various
each
reasons.
each record loses a little money. So I shouldn't disclose all this. Maybe we can cut this out. But you know, I wanted to put out my record,
Yeah.
and my record's been taking a long time. So my record is the one like preventing everything else from coming out. But honestly, I sort of like my records sold well, and you know, since I'm doing all the work, I'm gonna, you know,
Yeah.
put out my own record, and so I've been working on that, and I feel it's, you know, I guess everybody says this. Like Black Sabbath probably thought that their album 13 was their best record ever,
Yeah.
but I feel like this is my best record ever. I've kind of like, with electronic music, you learn new tricks, and you
Yeah.
learn new chops, and I kind of feel like I've learned so much.
You're like, I
And
know
I've learned-
this one has fill-ins.
Yeah, it's got some drum fills, it's got some raps, it's got some, and there's some guest appearances, some collaborations, like I feel like I've really learned a lot. I've learned more about mixing and producing, and just like what, you know, like getting, you know, just learned a lot of tricks and
That's
stuff like
good.
that. And also, like I feel like my voice is in good shape. You know, I don't drink or smoke, and you know, vegan and stuff like that, so my voice isn't all like, "Ugh." I mean, not that it was anyway.
Yeah. Well, but you're looking good though, man.
Oh, thanks.
It's sharp and trim, you know.
Thanks.
It's a nice. It seems like you're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I feel like it. I've you know, just kind of been working up toward this really like my whole life. I feel like, you know, and so
Getting ready for your 50s.
I'm in my 50s.
No, I know, but your whole life was
Oh,
just a preparation
Yeah.
for the best years of your life.
No, it is. I mean, like I've been okay. I like went vegan a few years ago. I don't drink anymore. I started meditating this year.
Yeah.
So I've been working on this album, and it's been taking a while, but sometimes
That's
good
okay.
things take a long
Yeah.
time. And
Well, it's gonna take a while to press that record too.
it is gonna take a while to press the record, and it's gonna take a while to, you know, to
But that stuff goes by quick, man. A year is over before you know it. So
yeah, and I'm keeping myself busy, and I'm gonna do I'm gonna have a little YouTube channel where I
Yeah.
rip off your concept and
Yeah.
put my own name on it.
Everybody should do it. I just stole Joe Rogan's idea.
Yeah, well, I'm stealing it from you,
Oh, okay.
so I'm gonna do a similar sort of thing.
You should.
That you're doing, just basically talking to people that inspire me,
Yeah.
and
You
maybe,
should
maybe
be.
you want to be on, like, you know, you have a career of your own, so I'm gonna invite you onto my show where I can grill you like you're grilling me.
Are you doing it in person? I mean, or like, is this?
I'll probably do it over Zoom.
Yeah, I don't know. See, I don't know if I can.
You don't like Zoom?
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't ever done it really. I'm not sure if it's. I don't know if it's better sitting here with somebody or not.
I think it. Oh, it's definitely better.
Yeah, I
it's
think
definitely better. But
it's
I'm ready
faster.
to do a worse thing than do nothing at all.
Yeah. No, but I mean, do however you want.
Yeah.
That's the internet. You can do whatever you want.
I kind of want to have a variety show, honestly, like where I maybe make short films and score them, and you know.
I mean, there's a lot of things that now you have
I've been doing a little vlogging.
you got more free time now, so do it. Why not do all that stuff, man?
Yeah. So I've got free time. Well, I mean, I can create free time. I don't have it, but I can
you don't.
create it. Carve it out.
You have a child, and she's getting older now. She doesn't need as much help.
Right? Yeah, she's 14.
I'm sure she
going into
needs help,
school.
but she's got her own stuff going on now, and which is great.
Yeah, and plus, I'm sure she wants a dad that does stuff. Like nobody wants a dad that's boring. So I don't know what she wants in a dad. I hope I'm it, but
well, she doesn't have a choice.
right.
You're her.
I gotta do what I gotta do.
Do the best you can, and it'll be fine.
Yeah, you just have to follow your intuition, which is what I've done, for better or for worse.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, so
back to failure again. No, I'm just kidding.
Did we? We gotta. It's Howard's bedtime, or it's been Howard's bedtime. We gotta wrap it up.
Howard is your son.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's had a long day, but I'm sure he's ready to go to bed. But did we miss anything? Is there anything you wanted to? We can. Did you wanted to bring up that I didn't?
No.
Touch on.
I mean, mainly, I think the thing that I want that I'm artistically excited about is my new album and playing shows again.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of been like working towards making something that's going to be extra special and sort of like deploying new techniques and kind of like a greatest hits of things I've already learned, mixed with new things that I've learned, and just trying some things. And I'm really excited about this new album, like more than I've.
Yeah.
Well, I'm always excited about what
Yeah.
I'm doing, but I
That's
feel like
good.
it's going to be my best thing, and
That's
so I'm
good.
excited about that. And that's really all I want to.
But wouldn't it be pretty terrible
part.
if you didn't think it was going to be good? That would be. Is that possible? Like, would you stop?
Have you ever put a song that's been filler on a record that you knew that wasn't
all the
as
time?
good as,
Everyone. No. Everything I do. No.
Man, this record needs like one more song. Here,
Well,
do this one.
I had a big. I was. Was I listening? I've been listening to those Rick Rubin podcast,
Okay.
and he has different people on it. But he had Will Oldham, or maybe Will Oldham, and then the other guy that he played. I can't remember his name now. The other guy that he plays
Matt
with.
Sweeney?
Yeah, he's on it too, and they're like, and he's like asking him a question, and he's like, "What's the first thing you think about, when you write a song?" And he said, Will Oldham said, "The audience," and that's like something I've never ever considered.
Oh, the audience?
Yeah, ever.
Oh man,
And
I'm always.
That was a big revelation for me to like realize, like, oh wait, I'm not just making this music for me, which is kind of what I've been doing. It goes from and the other revelation I had is that, when you're younger, you really care what other people think. So maybe then, I was considering the audience, but as you get older, you start. I was just doing it purely for me, and I don't know if that's good or bad, but it was just something that I had, that it was like a different way of thinking about it. Like oh wait, if I was gonna make a song for a club, like I would make a completely different thing than if I was gonna make it, just going to the studio and turning the synths on and like trying to enjoy myself, like.
So you are thinking about the audience, because if you're thinking about making us.
No, this is the
thing
first
that-
time I've thought about it.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm always thinking about the audience, even if it's like to like disappoint, like, oh man, they're gonna hate this. Let's do this. I'm still always thinking about the audience.
Yeah.
Like in my mind, like sometimes when I sing, I'm like, got my eyes closed and I'm imagining the crowd, and I'm imagining singing it in front of a crowd, and the audience is always there. in
Yeah,
my
see,
mind.
I think that's important, and it's something that I've completely missed my entire.
Like I'll be making something in my room, in my studio, and it'll be like, dunk, 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 and I'll just be like, oh man, imagine this on gigantic
Yeah.
speakers, and like the crowd just like, man, this is gonna fuck them up, man.
See, I always had this like this make something from the heart and it's gonna be good, and people, like, and just do what you do and do, and I had that in my mind, and so I was tried to just get into this like flow moments and just jam out and make these things. That's what I was always doing, You know,
Well, that's fun too.
yeah. So I think that the next time I'm able to have time to spend in the studio, then I'll have a different perspective. I think it'll open me up. You know what I mean?
Well, I feel like part of what I've been doing, and part of what has been slowing me down on my new album is like experimenting, like research and development, experimentation with the modular stuff. Like modular stuff is as fun as it is, and as groundbreaking as it is, can be a bit of a distraction toward finishing a song. And I love using it, and I want to use it, and I am using it. But I think that's where I'm thinking less about an audience than like, what does this do? What does that do? This is cool, but I have to finish the record.
We talked about it before we started. Is that the thing? I don't want to get into modulars because there's no limitations.
Yeah, you need limitations.
You can't. You know, you have a SP12. Like, okay, you got 4 seconds or whatever.
You have an SP12, you bastard.
No, I know,
you don't need anything else.
Yeah, but when I bought it, it was $300. I'm not like, you know, like it wasn't like
I know.
Overdose made me buy it. Thank you, Overdose.
Well, yes,
and
I'm glad you bought it. I've had literal dreams about having one of those. I'm like, if I had one of these, I could just sell everything.
No, but it's just to have a limitation has really helped me, and that's why I'm scared of this whole like modular world, because you're like, oh, but I could have this and do this and then it's like scrolling through presets.
You can make it like you don't like you could have limitations, but like you buy stuff and you sell stuff and you figure out like what you want.
Yeah.
For instance, I used to have the 808, and I would do like these 16th note hi-hat patterns where it'd be like, and I'd open and close it like. And when I sold the 808, I couldn't do that anymore until I got a tip-top 808 hi-hat module, and then I was able to do that again. And I'm like, okay, well so you can make like a super drum machine in a case where you have this sound and that sound, and like
I understand, but it's too much. I haven't been able to.
Or like a Pearl Syncussion, which you worked on a clone for a mutual friend of ours, and now you can have a little module like this big, and it makes the Pearl Syncussion sound.
I understand. We could also just do this on a computer, all of it, probably.
But that's terrible. I mean, it's not terrible. It's fun to do, but you lose that tactile fun element of it.
I don't know. I mean, this is this discussion we're having now is
could be part 2.
Endless.
Yeah, we'll continue it when you're on my show.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like a limitation. I think that's why I like the crappy old gear, but I don't know. One day, I don't know. I'll probably change my mind at one point, you know. But we're gonna wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up.
WTTV with James Marlon Magas. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Will. Pleasure being on.
Look forward to your new album on Midwich.
Yeah, coming soon.
Look at his social media somewhere, and you can find out what he's doing.
Go to jamesmarlonmagas.com.
Real website. All right, take it easy, everybody.
Peace.
Mm-hmm.